Zagan sat silently inside his dark castle while Nefi watched him from below. The tense atmosphere made her uneasy. Fear filled Nefi's mind as she carefully asked whether her life would soon end in the castle. Her sudden question shocked Zagan and broke his calm expression. Confusion spread across his face because he never planned to harm her. While Nefi waited quietly, Zagan struggled to understand how to treat the woman he deeply cared about. A young woman begged Mies to stop while fear slowly spread through the quiet forest. Dark power suddenly consumed Mies, turning his face into something terrifying before her eyes. The frightened girl realized the figure before her was no longer the man she knew. Mies moved closer as she trembled against the tree, unable to escape his presence. Although panic filled her mind, she learned his intentions were different from what she feared at first. The monster stared at the terrified girl while preparing a cruel ritual inside the forest. Its twisted body moved closer as panic spread across the area, and the girl struggled to escape. Suddenly, the creature paused after sensing another presence nearby. A dark-haired young man appeared behind the monster, leaving both the attacker and the girl shocked by his arrival. Zagan raised his hand calmly and confronted the intruder for causing chaos inside the territory under his control. The intruder froze, after realizing he had entered Zagan's territory and disturbed his rest. Zagan listened briefly before rejecting the man's excuse and condemning the cruel magic he practiced. Dark blood suddenly splashed across Nefi's face, leaving both her and Zagan shocked by the brutal sight. Panic filled Zagan's mind as Nefi trembled in fear beside the fallen body. Without hesitation, Zagan cast a powerful spell that destroyed the remaining threat and restored silence to the forest. Nefi slowly lost consciousness while blood stained her face after the violent battle ended. Inside the magic circle, Zagan stood over the defeated enemy and secured the area around them. Carefully, he used magic to remove the blood and hide the terrifying memory from Nefi's mind. While examining her belongings, Zagan noticed a cross-shaped crest connected to the church. Although the church opposed mages like him, Zagan decided her background no longer mattered after saving her life. Zagan prepared to leave the unconscious girl behind, believing someone else would eventually find her. Suddenly, his teleportation magic became unstable as another force interfered with the spell. Realizing the intruder bypassed the defenses surrounding his territory, Zagan immediately became cautious. A familiar presence emerged from the distorted magic circle while Zagan calmly confronted the unexpected visitor. Barbados arrived with amusement after sensing the disturbance, though Zagan showed little interest in his mocking remarks about mages and villains. Then Barbados noticed the unconscious girl's strong magical power and questioned why Zagan protected her instead of using her. The girl floated inside the magic circle while Zagan warned Barbados against harming people within his territory. Barbados mocked Zagan's tired appearance and explained how mages altered their own bodies to survive longer. Before leaving, Barbados revealed that he had important news connected to events from 1,000 years ago. Hearing the name of a fallen demon king immediately caught Zagan's attention and changed the atmosphere around them. News spread among the mages that one of the demon lords had recently died, leaving his title and power behind. Barbados informed Zagan about an auction in a nearby city where dangerous and valuable items would be sold. The large city prepared for the gathering as merchants and mages arrived from many regions. Inside the auction area, chained people and rare treasures were displayed for wealthy buyers. Barbados finally revealed that the dead demon lord's inheritance would become the main prize of the auction. Zagan and Barbados walked through the crowded city filled with merchants, ships, and strange creatures gathered for the auction. Barbados pressured Zagan to join the auction while searching for money to bid on the demon lord's legacy. As they moved deeper into the streets, Barbados teased Zagan about women while he ignored the distractions around him. Soon, they noticed suspicious men secretly gathering young women throughout the city. After hearing rumors about sacrifices and strange rituals, Zagan suspected someone was preparing to summon a dangerous demon. While exploring the underground passage, Barbados mocked Zagan's refusal to rely on sacrifice magic or friendships. Zagan insisted he preferred staying alone, though his hesitation revealed uncertainty in his thoughts. Soon, the two arrived at a massive auction arena crowded with wealthy buyers and powerful mages. As the event continued, unusual guests and suspicious figures gathered throughout the seats. Among the audience, several dangerous individuals appeared quietly, showing that many feared and infamous beings had come for the auction. The auction reached its final item, while Barbados explained that many Demon King candidates desired the prize. A hooded figure stepped onto the stage as the crowd prepared for the special presentation. Moments later, a chained white-haired elf girl appeared beneath the spotlight before the entire arena. The sight of the elf immediately captured Zagan's attention and left him completely stunned. As the auctioneer described her as both a magical sacrifice and slave, the silent atmosphere around Zagan suddenly became far heavier. The auction host announced the opening price while the arena fell silent around the chained elf. Shock spread through the crowd after Zagan suddenly offered an enormous amount of money for her. Without hesitation, he raised the bid to 1 million gold coins and captured everyone's attention. Even Barbados could not hide his disbelief as the entire arena reacted to Zagan's reckless offer. While staring at the elf beneath the spotlight, Zagan realized he wanted to protect her and see her smile again. Zagan realized the elf was the one thing he truly wanted. Leaving Barbados shocked by his decision, embarrassment spread across Zagan's face after admitting his feelings, so openly in front of everyone. The auction officially ended as Zagan became the owner of the white-haired elf. Although Neffy quietly followed him, Zagan struggled to understand how he should treat or speak to her. After learning the necklace restrained her magic, Zagan carefully listened while trying to hide his growing nervousness around her. Following the auction, Zagan discovered the necklace sealing Neffy's magic was difficult to remove safely. Meanwhile, the seller explained that her immense magical power prevented normal magic from affecting her body. Before speaking to her directly, nervous thoughts began filling Zagan's mind over the simplest interaction. Around them, the uncomfortable atmosphere quickly confused both Barbados and the auction staff. At last, Neffy gathered the courage to ask whether her life would end under Zagan's control. Hearing Neffy calmly accept death shocked Zagan, who quickly denied any intention of harming her. Still uncertain, Neffy misunderstood his words and believed a cruel fate still awaited her inside the castle. Trying to calm the situation, Zagan awkwardly introduced himself and explained he had no interest in torture. After a long silence, Neffy finally shared her real name, leaving Zagan quietly amazed by its beauty. As their conversation continued, Zagan gently accepted the nickname Neffy and slowly relaxed around her presence. Neffy quietly revealed that she was feared as a cursed child because of her unusual power. Although confused by her answer, Zagan continued trying to understand the thoughts hidden behind her calm behavior. Suddenly, Neffy innocently declared her purity, leaving Zagan completely shocked by the unexpected statement. Embarrassment quickly filled the room as Zagan desperately explained he had no intention of using her for experiments. Unable to control his thoughts anymore, Zagan awkwardly avoided the topic while questioning his own words inside his mind. While Neffy calmly accepted living beside him, Zagan secretly panicked over sharing the castle with her. Despite Zagan offering her freedom inside the castle, Neffy still believed death would eventually await her. Her hopeless words reminded Zagan of his own lonely past and deepened the tension between them. Carefully, Zagan explained that he needed Neffy by his side and wanted her to stop thinking about dying. For the first time, Neffy looked genuinely surprised after hearing someone tell her to keep living. Together, Zagan and Neffy quietly stepped forward, beginning their new life inside the castle. A sharp sound echoed as Zagan entered the dark castle beneath the quiet night sky. Along the hallway, he brought Neffy toward a room high inside the tower while studying her uneasy reaction. Misunderstanding his words, Neffy calmly accepted the thought of punishment, leaving Zagan troubled by her fear. As they climbed higher, he realized she had been treated like an experiment for too long. Suddenly, Neffy lost balance on the stairs and Zagan quickly caught her before she could fall. Carefully walking up the stairs, Zagan reached back and held Neffy's hand to keep her steady. Warmth spread through his mind after realizing their hands remained together longer than expected. Soon, he stopped before an old, unused room hidden deep inside the tower. Inside the dusty chamber stood a large execution device surrounded by bones and broken remains. The sight immediately shocked Zagan, while Neffy quietly stared at the cruel object before them. Neffy quietly obeyed after believing the dangerous device above them was meant to test intruders. Embarrassed by the misunderstanding, Zagan destroyed the trap with magic before it could frighten her further. Smoke slowly filled the ruined chamber while both of them examined the damaged remains in silence. Although the room stayed unusable, Zagan felt relieved after removing the source of Neffy's fear. Meanwhile, Neffy watched his overwhelming magic with surprise, realizing the feared sorcerer acted more awkward than cruel later that night. Zagan guided Neffy onto the quiet balcony beneath the stars above the tower. Moonlight reflected in her eyes as she silently reached both hands toward the distant crescent moon. After noticing her attention fixed on the sky, Zagan tried to understand what she truly felt inside. Slowly, he raised his hand beside hers, attempting to share the peaceful moment without frightening her. Neffy quietly looked upward again while Zagan awkwardly accepted that her feelings still remained difficult to understand. Standing beside the balcony, Neffy quietly asked Zagan if she could keep the room for herself. Although the chamber remained damaged and covered with ashes, she calmly accepted it without complaint. A faint smile appeared on Neffy's face after recognizing the room had been prepared by Zagan himself. Hearing her gratitude, he allowed her to use the place however she wished despite its ruined condition. For the first time in years, Zagan felt unsettled after receiving sincere appreciation from another person. Neffy quietly admitted that expressing gratitude again after so long felt unfamiliar to her. Together, she and Zagan stood beneath the moon while silence filled the castle balcony during the night. By morning, Zagan remained exhausted after spending the entire night unable to rest properly. Even while sitting on his throne, he still could not sleep for a single moment. Nearby, Neffy peacefully slept beside the throne as Zagan struggled to control his anxious thoughts around her. Morning light entered the hall while Neffy slowly opened her eyes beside Zagan's throne. After noticing movement nearby, she quietly sat up and looked toward the approaching sorcerer. Carrying food in his hands, Zagan froze when Neffy politely greeted him for the morning. Confused by such a simple exchange, he struggled to think of a proper response without embarrassing himself. Unable to handle the tension any longer, Zagan awkwardly shoved the food toward Neffy and demanded she eat first. While eating together on the floor, Neffy became confused after seeing Zagan share the same poor meal with her. Her reaction made him realize she believed masters and servants should never eat identical food. Embarrassment quickly struck Zagan after understanding his simple breakfast looked worse than proper animal feed. Meanwhile, Neffy silently worried that the careless sorcerer might eventually collapse from such unhealthy meals. As they continued eating in silence, Zagan admitted he had lived like this for many years alone. While thinking about ordinary meals, Zagan quietly wondered what normal people usually ate every day. After noticing his poor eating habits, Neffy carefully offered to prepare food for him herself. Her unexpected suggestion immediately shocked Zagan, since he never imagined Neffy could cook at all. Excitement quickly overwhelmed him as he realized someone he cared about wanted to make food for him. Without hesitation, Zagan decided they should visit the city together to buy proper ingredients for cooking. While preparing to visit the city, Zagan discovered the travel cost was far higher than expected. After checking his finances, he reluctantly admitted he had no money, despite ruling a large castle. After spending all his money on Neffy, Zagan realized he no longer had enough gold to support their travels. While returning home, thoughts about selling belongings and stealing from wagons crossed his troubled mind. Neffy quietly noticed his strange behavior and became worried as he stared at her from behind. Embarrassing fantasies about opening a peaceful cafe with Neffy suddenly filled Zagan's imagination. Before he could settle his thoughts, another group of bandits attacked the wagon and demanded everyone's belongings. After realizing his empty finances, Zagan became determined to find money before visiting the nearby city with Neffy. While walking outside the castle, he considered desperate ideas to recover enough coins for their trip. Neffy quietly watched him struggle as he tried hiding his dangerous thoughts from her. Embarrassing fantasies about peaceful life with Neffy distracted Zagan until loud screams suddenly echoed nearby. Moments later, armed bandits attacked a passing carriage, forcing Zagan to witness the violent robbery before him. Zagan noticed a group of bandits carrying kidnapped people through the forest while Neffy quietly watched beside him. Although the criminals seemed weak, the sight of the captives reminded Zagan of cruel events from the past. Neffy sensed the sudden change in his expression and became uneasy as silence surrounded them. Rage burst from Zagan's magic, destroying the ground in front of the bandits while Neffy observed carefully. Disgust filled his eyes as Zagan judged the kidnappers as worthless beings. A large bandit rushed towards Zagan, believing a mage could not fight properly without magic. Without changing his calm expression, Zagan stepped forward and faced the attacker directly. Shock spread across the bandits as Zagan blocked the assault with overwhelming strength and precision. His counterattack struck instantly, sending the muscular criminal flying across the area. Fear quickly consumed the remaining bandits while Neffy watched Zagan defeat them without hesitation. A hooded mage activated a large magic sigil to trap Zagan and prevent him from escaping the battlefield. Instead of retreating, Zagan seized control of the sigil and turned the enemy's spell against its owner. Violent magic exploded across the area, destroying the ground while the kidnapped villagers watched in shock. Fear spread through the enemy group as Zagan advanced without mercy and forced them into despair. The surviving bandits collapsed in terror while Zagan calmly stared down at the defeated criminals. Neffy carefully watched Zagan after the battle while he worried that his actions had frightened her again. Trying to comfort her, Zagan awkwardly explained that the defeated bandits were no threat anymore. The rescued villagers gathered around him with gratitude, leaving Zagan confused by their cheerful reactions. A merchant rewarded him with money and requested protection for the rest of the journey. For the first time, Zagan realized people were thanking him instead of fearing him, and the unfamiliar feeling left him speechless. Zagan quietly wondered if the villagers trusted him only because Neffy stayed beside him during the journey. As the wagon continued forward, Neffy called out to him while noticing his troubled expression. Her question forced Zagan to think carefully about why he chose to rescue the kidnapped people. Embarrassment crossed his mind when he briefly imagined gaining Neffy's affection through his actions. In the end, Zagan convinced himself that protecting others in danger was simply the right thing to do. Inside the wagon, Zagan tried to justify his actions while Neffy quietly listened beside him during the journey. After speaking carelessly again, embarrassment filled Zagan's mind as silence surrounded the moving wagon. The town buzzed with life as Zagan and Neffy quietly entered, drawing a few curious glances. While seated in a shop, he offered her the freedom to choose anything, though she insisted she needed nothing. Reflecting on her silence, he realized uncertainty had dulled her sense of want. Remembering her clumsy stumble the day before, he decided proper clothes might help. A cheerful clerk greeted them warmly as they stepped into the clothing store. The town buzzed with life as Zagan and Neffy quietly entered, drawing a few curious glances. While seated in a shop, he offered her the freedom to choose anything, though she insisted she needed nothing. Reflecting on her silence, he realized uncertainty had dulled her sense of want. Remembering her clumsy stumble the day before, he decided proper clothes might help. A cheerful clerk greeted them warmly as they stepped into the clothing store. Neffy stepped out in a revealing outfit, leaving Zagan completely stunned and flustered. Manuela proudly claimed it matched his taste, but he questioned her idea of suitable. Blushing and embarrassed, Neffy begged not to be looked at while Zagan desperately sought normal clothes. She was finally presented with a modest dress and enchanted boots, softly stating she was fine with anything. As they left the shop, Manuela whispered, reminding Neffy how fortunate she was to be treasured. Manuela leaned closer, whispering something that caught Neffy off guard. Fingers gripped fabric tightly as the words sank in. She began to wonder if she was truly valued. Steps followed behind without hesitation when asked to enter the next store. A surprised clerk greeted them as a request was made for a specific check. Hand reached toward her collar, gently asking if its removal was possible. Words carried weight. Wearing that collar made it seem like she still belonged to someone else. A magical seal flared as the clerk explained. Its removal exceeded their ability, sinking his mood. Warning followed. Tampering might trigger traps hidden within the enchantment. Worse still, forced removal could be fatal, and even auction staff lacked the means to unlock it. A kind offer was declined, not out of pride, but from a sense of undeserved reward. Across the counter, a quiet smile formed as the blacksmith spoke words of gratitude. A year ago, he and his daughter had been rescued from a carriage attack. Though they fled in fear, they never forgot the mercy shown that day. Memories faded for one, but the gesture remained unforgettable to the other. An open invitation followed return any time. No matter the reason, no debt owed. Strangely, people had been unusually kind all day, something he couldn't explain. Kindness felt foreign. Even the blacksmith, once wary, now smiled sincerely. Later that evening, they sat down to share a warm meal together in quiet. Breaking the silence, Neffy asked if the collar would eventually be removed. Worry lingered. What if she left once freed? Deep down, doubt whispered that she had no reason to stay. He admitted the collar couldn't be removed yet, urging her not to expect too much. Though disappointed, she accepted it calmly while he internally questioned why he couldn't simply affirm his desire to free her. During dinner, she asked gently if he struggled with utensils, confusing him further. She then revealed that eating like this was a first. His realization struck quietly. Memories surfaced. He too had once been lost, powerless, and abandoned. Now he understood her deeply. Encouragement came gently. There was no need to hesitate if the food looked appealing. With quiet gratitude, she folded her hands and offered thanks for the meal. Tentatively, she lifted her fork and eyed the dish with cautious interest. A soft blush crept across her cheeks, warmth replacing tension as she ate. Surprise lit her face after tasting something sweet and unfamiliar, but welcome delight. Awkwardly, she rolled the food with her fork, unsure how to eat properly. Sudden gulp followed by a splat startled her. He hesitantly asked for her thoughts. A soft smile appeared as she admitted it tasted delicious. Curiously, he tried one of the tomatoes, surprised by how refreshing it was despite its candy-like appearance. Silence settled between them, but it was no longer uncomfortable, just quietly shared warmth. Tomatoes rolled freely as dinner continued, small moments settling into comfort. To his shock, she offered him one with open hands, gently urging him to try. Heart pounding, he froze, unsure if this was considered being fed or something more. She brought the spoon to his mouth, blushing. He tasted it and quietly agreed it was delicious. Her voice softened. No orders had ever been given. Yet she remained by his side willingly. With resolve in her eyes, she asked to be useful to him if he'd allow it. Her sincerity moved him. He accepted, promising to give his best as well. A tomato left untouched prompted her question. He quickly insisted she eat it. His own hand extended next, gently offering her a bite in return. Blushing, she quietly answered it was delicious, while nearby whispers stirred embarrassment he tried to hide. They left the tavern side by side, her hand gently holding his sleeve. Together, they had acknowledged their roles master and servant, but with mutual respect. Far away, a holy night sighed beneath moonlight, her mind clearly burdened. She confessed her failure, 4 knights lost under her command, ashamed before her superior. He offered gentle words of reassurance, praising her strength for returning with honor. During the mission, they subdued vile mages using girls as sacrifices until betrayal struck from within. Though she survived, it was Zagan, another mage who defeated their true enemy. Despite his merciless strike, something in his eyes left her feeling an unexpected loneliness. The investigation revealed deeper shadows. This case was far from over. To her shock, Zagan was named the true culprit, condemned as evil by the church's decree. She stepped forward, requesting the duty to be placed in her hands, surprising the elder. With unwavering resolve, Shastel Lilkis stood ready, Holy Knight's captain and bearer of the Holy Sword. In the midst of a violent struggle, Zagan seizes his opponent and activates a potent magical seal. The symbol burns into his flesh, blood trickling as the power completes its transfer. Upon awakening in his grand hall, he finds Neffy standing before him, composed and waiting. Rather than leave, she calmly announces breakfast, having spent the entire time by his side. With softened eyes, he greets her, receiving a gentle reply that marks their growing closeness. Zagan reflects with quiet satisfaction, having finally managed to greet Neffy with composure. They walk together into the dining hall, now bathed in warm light and refined elegance. He recalls the past, stunned by the transformation from a cold, decaying space to a welcoming room. Surprised, he learns Neffy baked the bread herself, despite having no memory of purchasing any. He admires the meal's quality, while Neffy listens silently, her expression subtly twitching with emotion. As Neffy pours tea, Zagan quietly wonders if her subtle movements reveal hidden joy. He asks if she's eaten, only to hear she prepared food solely for him. Embarrassed by her oversight, she admits forgetting to make her own portion. Zagan gently suggests they share the meal and offers his chair for her to sit beside him. Flustered and unsure, Neffy blushes, caught off guard by his unexpected kindness. He dismisses the argument with quiet firmness, insisting the matter isn't worth a fuss. Neffy hesitates, visibly flustered, yet ultimately agrees to follow his request. Without protest, she sits on his lap, her expression shy yet obedient. Embarrassment takes over as she realizes the closeness of their position, unable to hide her discomfort. Touched by her sincerity, Zagan gently encourages her to eat and prepares to include her next time. Neffy gently reaches out and offers to feed him, her expression calm but focused. Flustered by the gesture, he wonders if it's some form of affectionate revenge. As he tastes the soup, warmth spreads through him, not just from the food. Later in his study, she curiously asks about the symbols he examines so often. Pointing at the diagram, he challenges her to see beyond magic, sparking unexpected recognition. Neffy reveals her inability to use magic, a confession she hesitates to share. Curious about her condition, he explains ancient symbols that channel power, pondering her potential. Drawing a basic magic circle, he demonstrates how mana activates lightning through structured forms. Visual sparks begin to form as he breaks down the layered complexity of spell design. Energy erupts upward, stunning Neffy, while he explains that only through refinement can true control emerge. A magic circle's structure is formally known as a circuit, shaping how energy flows. Neffy observes the arrangement closely and questions whether internal layering is possible. Her insight impresses him, technically feasible, yet risky. It requires great precision. Layering circuits disrupts mana flow, often rendering spells inert or dangerously unstable. If perfectly executed, such control allows a mage to command magic post-activation, turning all attacks into personal power. Achieving complete control over active magic could, in theory, make someone the strongest mage alive. Despite that, he reminds her theory alone means little without real application and effort. Serious research into magic's true limits remains rare, often dismissed as impractical or dangerous. Such power would only serve to overpower others and steal magical knowledge by force. Even so, Neffy begins grasping its structure, sensing for the first time how magic truly works. Neffy inquires if understanding magic construction alone allows anyone to wield it. He confirms her intuition. In a room filled with dangerous runes, he warns her about traps mages use to guard secrets. Turning back, he reassures her with a grin the traps won't harm her. Her startled reaction draws a comment. She's clearly enjoying herself. He notices her ears drooping softly, quietly revealing emotions she couldn't express with words. Zagan realizes he's never opened up so directly to Neffy until now, especially about magic. She humbly asks for permission to pose a question, her tone soft and hesitant. With quiet sincerity, she wonders what he truly desires after achieving his magical goals. Uncertain, he admits he's never considered it, but thinks simply maybe just to live. Memories of hardship resurface, yet he recalls those days without bitterness, only quiet reflection. Captured as a child and nearly sacrificed, he narrowly escaped by seizing control from that moment. He pursued power, aiming for strength, eternal youth, and the ability to survive. Neffy lowers her gaze, admitting she lacks the strength he carries so naturally. He kneels beside her, offering a chance to explore magic, sensing her quiet interest. Far beyond their walls, an unknown force approaches, hinting that peace may soon be tested. Zagan instructs Neffy to prepare dinner, requesting nothing more than a meal for two. A group of armored knights stands outside, determined to confront the so-called kidnapper. Frustration builds as they find themselves trapped within a magical barrier, looping endlessly. The barrier shatters as one knight attacks, causing Zagan to appear and sarcastically welcome them. Recognition strikes the female knight, confirms her suspicion the man before her is their target. While preparing dinner, Neffy finds moldy seasoning and quietly notes to buy a fresh one. Long ago, a legendary sword that once defeated demon kings chose a young girl as its master. She became the church's only female holy knight years later. She stood boldly on the battlefield, her presence commanding attention as Zagan recognized her from the past. With sharp movements and fierce determination, she launched an attack against her foes. Nearby knights dismissed Zagan's role, claiming control of the fight. Unfazed, Zagan unleashed powerful magic, forcing them into a brutal clash. Chastel swiftly incapacitated the enemy soldiers, leaving one stunned by her power. Despite his injuries, a knight rose again, only to be mocked by Zagan, who questioned their usefulness. Their blades clashed in a heated exchange as the determined knight charged recklessly. Zagan easily outmaneuvered him, striking with precision and leaving the knight in shock. Standing victorious, Zagan warned him, calmly explaining how close he came to death. With cold resolve, Zagan reminded them he hadn't forgotten the past either. While Chastel stayed alert, confused by his behavior, she questioned whether he mocked the defeated and misunderstood his intent. Zagan responded cryptically, hinting at a deeper strategy involving fear. He explained that sparing enemies to spread terror was more effective than killing them all. Unconvinced, Chastel called his reasoning a lie, staring him down with firm disbelief. Chastel calmly pointed out that Zagan's words didn't reflect his true motives. She realized his restraint was to avoid frightening Neffy. Not for the reasons he claimed. Caught off guard, Zagan admitted to himself that she had uncovered the truth. Declaring her name and mission, Chastel vowed to subdue the mage before her. Despite her boldness, her attacks lacked force, revealing the limits of her divine protection. Chastel pushed forward aggressively, questioning why Zagan wouldn't retaliate. Zagan hesitated, reminded of Neffy, and admitted he couldn't bring himself to strike a girl her age. She challenged him, wondering why someone so capable would resort to magic. Their debate escalated as she condemned magic as evil, while Zagan questioned her own use of force. As tension peaked, they clashed again, Chastel barely evading a powerful counterattack. Without seeking approval, he stood firm. People who step on others can't speak of justice. She looked down and his voice softened. Admitting her expression made it difficult to fight back. Determined, she charged again, unwilling to lose despite hesitation. Magic surged from his arm, blocking her swift advance with a powerful shield. He challenged her resolve. She responded with fire, ready to clash without backing down. A surprise attack landed, slowing down his regeneration. Her sword carried hidden power. Trapped against a tree, he prepared to strike, believing there was no other option instead. She leaned close and asked him to fake his defeat. Explaining calmly, she warned that losing here would prevent stronger knights from being dispatched. She urged him to disappear, abandon magic, and start over as a human. Acknowledged the mercy shown, noting there was compassion behind his supposed fear tactics. Hearing her gratitude, he was caught off guard by the sincerity in her expression. Though regretful, she insisted this outcome was the only way forward. Despite knowing the church's brutal consequences, she still chose to act on her conscience. He realized fleeing meant exposing Neffy to danger. Walking away wasn't an option anymore. Uncertainty clouded his thoughts as she clung to him, awaiting his decision. Meanwhile, Neffy rushed toward them, unaware of the danger ahead. Startled soldiers spotted her, drawing weapons, forcing him to shout a warning. Without hesitation, he leapt forward and shielded her, taking a brutal hit to protect her. Cradling Neffy in his arms, he endured the pain as another called out in alarm. Zagan reassured Neffy while pain surged through his injured arm. Suddenly, the forest stirred unnaturally, vines reacting to an unknown force. Everyone froze as the ground cracked beneath them, the trees pulsing with power. Neffy stepped forward, anger awakened. Her calm demeanor faded as she faced the enemy who dared harm her master. Neffy stands firm as she senses danger and declares her anger after her master is harmed. Channeling her magic, she begins to control the surrounding forest. Vines and roots respond to her will. Tree limbs lash out, attacking the enemy without hesitation, driving them back violently. The forest binds one attacker completely, lifting him into the air and snapping around him. Before more harm is done, her master steps in, stopping Neffy's rampage with a firm embrace. Zagan observes the aftermath, puzzled by the display of overwhelming force. Looking at the twisted trees, he begins to grasp the depth of Neffy's hidden abilities. Later, in a quiet room, he gently reaches for her hand, seeking answers. The knight apologizes, and Zagan questions Neffy, unsure how she could wield such power. With hesitation, Neffy finally responds what she used wasn't magic at all. Zagan casually dismisses her power, claiming it doesn't concern him. Internally, he panics, realizing his words might have sounded indifferent. Gathering resolve, he assures her that no matter her strength, she is still herself. Neffy softens, surprised by his sincerity, and quietly offers her thanks. With newfound openness, she hesitantly asks if her power frightened him. Breaking the silence, she lowers her gaze, quietly asking if her presence seems unsettling to him. Zagan responds with confusion, prompting her to explain her concern. She questions his reaction to her ability while he admits curiosity about the unknown power. Reluctantly, she begins to reveal the nature of her gift, still uncertain about it herself. Finally, she names it mysticism, a power thought to be only legend until now. Mysticism isn't born from logic like magic. Instead, it manifests through pure will, disrupting reality itself. As a child, she was labeled cursed, singled out for possessing something forbidden. Locked away and isolated, she came to believe her existence was a mistake. Despite that, her elders forced her to unleash her power when invaders threatened the village. Survival came at a cost. Repayment for simply being allowed to live was demanded without mercy. Hearing those cruel words shattered something deep inside, leaving only silence in its place. She gave up all resistance, allowing herself to be taken without struggle. Chaos erupted as elves fell, used even in death like disposable tools. Chains replaced freedom, her gaze hollow as she stood among cloaked captors. In that moment, a bitter thought surfaced. Cold and quiet serves you right. Rage twisted into joy as she watched those who cursed her fall, feeling nothing but satisfaction. After everything ended, regret finally settled, and too late to undo her actions. She confessed her darkness, convinced no one could forgive someone who smiled through death. Instead of disgust, his response was confusion. He didn't understand her self-loathing. With brutal honesty, he claimed he would have destroyed them all without hesitation if in her place. Zagan clarified that power itself is neutral, only those who wield it define its nature. Neffy admitted her guilt, believing her actions were beyond forgiveness, blamed by her own people. He dismissed their judgment, stating bluntly that the dead no longer have a say. Instead, he urged her to live boldly, honoring those who perish by not wasting her strength. Doubt lingered, but his counter-question challenged her belief. Was power truly wrong to have? Neffy hesitated, but his calm tone urged her to listen as he shifted the topic. Zagan confessed that many labeled him evil without understanding his actions. In a flashback, he recalled saving a girl from bandits, only to be questioned for doing so. The rescued child challenged his ideals, accusing him of denying the weak their right to live. Looking back, he regretted saving her, realizing pity had only led to corruption and arrogance. Driven by disdain for weakness, he vowed never to become like those he despised. Abandonment taught him hard truths. Depending on others only invited betrayal. Alone and desperate, he buried himself in study, clawing towards strength at any cost. Despite reaching power, emptiness remained. Admiration meant little when purpose felt hollow. Now, seeing Neffy hurt, he found himself shaken not by weakness, but by her sadness. Even if it risked everything he believed in, he chose to confront the contradiction within. Kneeling before her, he gently lifted her chin and told her not to look so sad. With sincerity, he assured her she belonged, her presence now irreplaceable to him. Tears spilled freely as emotion overwhelmed her. Voice breaking with relief, she clung to him, crying under the quiet night, finally feeling accepted and safe. Flushed with embarrassment, Neffy quietly admitted she'd shown a side of herself she rarely revealed. Zagan reassured her, amused, saying it was the most she had ever spoken. She then noticed his hand and asked if the pain remained. To their surprise, the wound had vanished, likely healed by her touch. Stunned, he thanked her with awe while she looked on, completely confused by his reaction. Zagan's thanks caught her off guard. It was the first time he'd said those words to her. despite everything. She smiled softly, reaffirming that she belonged to him without hesitation. Later, her quiet steps echoed in the hall as she approached him once more. She struggled to speak, fidgeting nervously in front of him. Blushing, she asked shyly if she could sleep by his side that night. His entire body froze in shock as her unexpected question echoed clearly in his mind. Neffy approached calmly, requesting to share the bed, leaving Zagan stunned on his throne. Confused and flustered, he misunderstood her intentions, imagining a deeper implication behind her words. She explained that the castle only had one bed, prompting him to freeze in surprise. Gently, Neffy reminded him he always slept on the throne, urging him to rest properly. Realizing her innocent intent, Zagan accepted her pure offer without further hesitation or doubt. Zagan declined the offer, choosing to guard the room that sustained his barrier. Neffy, undeterred, gently offered her lap as a pillow, surprising him completely though hesitant. Zagan was overwhelmed by the sincerity in her gesture and accepted. Resting on her lap, he found it oddly comforting, though flustered by her closeness. Grateful to him for accepting her despite her hidden power, Neffy wished to repay his kindness. She lowered her gaze as he assured her that her kindness had always been enough. His voice softened as he reached toward her collar, drawing her attention. A sudden question emerged. Did she wish to study magic? Control over her mystic power was unstable, yet training might grant her self-defense. With calm certainty, he believed she could surpass even his own magical ability. Uncertainty lingered as she questioned her value, hoping to be of use. His reminder of her past courage stirred silent determination in her heart. Resolved, she pledged to master magic not for herself, but for his sake. A soft voice called out, bridging the quiet moment between teacher and student. Reflections on loneliness and strength revealed how much his view of others had changed. He admitted his earlier words, brushing them off with casual honesty. Despite his tone, she sensed pain behind his past and voiced it gently. Wrapping him in comfort, she reassured him his heart was never evil. Warmth settled in as he quietly accepted the truth, letting the tension fade. For once, peace filled the grand room, and sharing it felt surprisingly right. A guest arrived in haste, concern written all over his face. Inside the room, Zagan sat calmly with a cup of tea, unbothered. Hearing about the holy knights, he brushed off the attack as insignificant. Only then did he recall that a holy sword wielder had also been involved. As the two discussed further, he admitted the barrier was breached not by enemies, but by someone much stronger. Shock filled the room when the visitor recognized the elf from an earlier encounter. Before assumptions grew wild, Zagan clarified Neffy wasn't a servant, but his student. Her presence was more than symbolic. Her assistance in magic had real value. The guests realized her power had turned the tide against the holy knights. Suspicion surfaced. Was this quiet sorcerer planning to challenge the demon lord's throne? A thought lingered, perhaps becoming a demon lord could shield her from future threats. When questioned, his calm reply left no room for doubt or hesitation. Neffy's tea pleased him, but his guest grew suspicious of deeper feelings. Deflecting the tease, he simply asked, was it wrong to treasure someone under his care? His companion chuckled, noting that traces of humanity still lingered in him. With a loud slam, the guest departed, leaving behind lingering curiosity. Neffy sensed amusement in her master, though he dismissed the idea of friendship. He brushed off the suggestion, insisting she misunderstood his mood entirely. Pushing aside distractions, he redirected their focus to repairing the castle's magical barrier. Over the following days, she immersed herself in study, gradually learning the fundamentals of magic through steady practice. She had reached the point where, without restraints, magic would flow freely. Mysticism remained a challenge. Results were unpredictable, often exaggerated in scale. Time passed quietly. 2 weeks had slipped by since she'd entered his life. While they trained, a sudden flock of birds delivered a strange, magical disturbance. From the sky, an invitation arrived bearing the seal of the 12 demon lords. In the lively canal city of Keanoides, trade flowed through waterways under the watchful eye of merchants and nobles. Beneath the city, the crumbling ruins of the late demon lord Marchosia's castle stood forgotten by most. There, Zagan descended into darkness, where hooded figures encircled him in solemn silence. All 12 surviving demon lords had gathered, their motives hidden behind cloaks and calm stares. Wone stepped forward, recognizing him with unsettling interest. Zagan's name echoed. Murmurs of doubt echoed as the hooded figures whispered about Zagan's youth and inexperience. Facing the weight of their presence, he stood rigid, overwhelmed by the sheer magical pressure. Holding his composure, Zagan demanded clarity, masking unease with sharp confidence. Amused by his tone, the elders commended his boldness and decided to speak without reserve. To his surprise, they offered him a seat among them as the 13th Demon Lord. A blinding flash burst from the chamber as one Demon Lord summoned a searing magical seal. They revealed the crest once owned by Marchosia as its inheritance, marking one as a true Demon Lord. Floating mid-air, the symbol pulsed with dense, overwhelming mana, far beyond normal comprehension. Zagan sensed the immense energy in the room and realized the terrifying gap in power. Watching his reaction, one elder questioned his hesitation, pressing him for a response. Zagan voiced his doubts, questioning why he, among stronger mages, was chosen. The answer was blunt: his magical skill was lacking. Yet something deeper set him apart. They recounted his victory over a formidable mage, a feat no novice should achieve. Despite glimpsing magic only once, he instinctively reproduced it, crafting his own through sheer comprehension. The council acknowledged his terrifying potential, warning that none could resist him if he desired destruction. He declared his might tyrannical power worthy of a true demon lord. They justified their choice, claiming it served the evolution of magic and intelligence. Unconvinced, Zagan challenged their reasoning, questioning if he could really take from them. Laughter filled the hall, but a warning followed, cautioning him as he turned to leave. A cold gaze reminded him loss could come swifter than any gain. To bear the title of Demon Lord meant more than power, it was the threat of total erasure. That same fate now loomed, the consequences already cast in shadowed certainty. No comfort awaited, only the descent into a void deeper than any mage's darkness. Normal life slipped away long ago, survival demanded sacrifice and surrender. Only two paths remained: ascend without hesitation or fade into irrelevance. Doubt stirred as memories of Nephi surfaced. Could he truly expose her to such a fate? His decision hinged on a single desire, a condition yet to be fulfilled. Permission was granted, his choice respected. The council awaited his resolve. He stepped forward without hesitation and accepted the role of Demon Lord. In a surge of magic and ritual, Zagan was officially welcomed as their newest sworn ally. Peaceful moments passed as Nephi quietly prepared dinner inside the stone-walled home. Footsteps signaled his return, yet something in his expression felt distant. Concern filled the room as she paused, sensing a heaviness she couldn't explain. Memories flickered her warmth, her light, and the weight of his new fate tightened. With quiet resolve, he confessed the truth: he had become a demon lord. Recognition of his new title dawned. He now stood as a king among mages. With that power came a legacy, the artifacts and knowledge of Marchosia's. He extended a magical key toward Nephi, activating the seal once placed upon her. Chains shattered as magic responded to his command. Her collar fell away at last. Fingers brushed her neck in disbelief. Freedom, once distant, had quietly become reality. Her question lingered, but his answer was brief and cold. Without emotion, he cast her aside, claiming he no longer needed her. Days earlier, she had just started settling into life at the castle. Eager to help, she tackled a cursed mess with full effort, unaware she misunderstood everything. The elf girl awoke in an unfamiliar, ruined room, disoriented and confused about how she arrived there. She recalled preparing lamb stew for her master, only to suddenly collapse and wake in this strange place on the ground. She found her broken slave collar, evidence of a severed bond. Memories returned. Her master, now a demon lord, had cast her out without explanation. Thou abandoned, his final words urged her to live for his sake. Kindness surrounded the girl as she recalled words of comfort once offered to her: freedom, food, and safety. Her heart echoed with the memory of his voice, gently confessing his need for her. Despite that, she sat in silence, unable to cry, burdened by confusion and loss. Suddenly, a young woman appeared, radiating strength and surprise. Recognition sparked. She was the holy knight connected to Zagan's past. Doubt lingered in her voice as she questioned the visitor's intent. With calm resolve, rather than resist, she offered her life freely, misjudging the knight's purpose. Accusations followed. Rooted in fear, mages were hunted, and she was one of them. Crowds gathered, whispers rising as curious eyes focused on the tense exchange. Misunderstanding spread quickly, villagers believing she was under threat for simply serving a mage. Tension rose as sharp words questioned a knight's role in executing those linked to magic. Before explanations could continue, a winged figure intervened, fiercely protecting the elf from perceived harm. Misunderstandings deepened. Villagers accused the knight, pointing to a pale face as proof of guilt. Crowds grew hostile, shouting threats and demanding punishment, while the knight collapsed in shock. Despite the chaos, the elf calmly defended her, declaring no harm had been done. Surprise spread among onlookers as the knight trembled, overwhelmed by emotion and confusion. Tears burst forth as she insisted she meant no harm, her words soaked in desperation. Choked by guilt, she explained how concern for the elf had driven her actions. Composing herself, she apologized for her breakdown, masking her vulnerability. Yet probing questions continued, challenging whether hurting others could ever be justified as duty. Neffy gently reassured the others, saying nothing serious had occurred in the past incident. Lulu clarified that someone else had harmed her master and that justice had already been served. A question about the knight's role triggered confusion, leading to an awkward misinterpretation of her contribution. Shouting her rank in frustration, Lulu tried to defend her honor and position. She quietly observed, wondering how someone once so gallant could appear so timid. Now an offer to pay unsettled Neffy, who hesitated due to her lack of money. A familiar dish caught her eye, stirring memories of nights spent serving her master. Tears welled as emotion overtook her. Lamb stew brought back feelings she couldn't suppress. Overwhelmed, she cried out in anguish, unable to contain the heartbreak any longer. Without hesitation, arms wrapped around her, offering comfort she hadn't expected but truly needed. With a soft nod, Neffy confirmed she had been cast out without ever learning the reason. One of her companions, disappointed, speculated that she had merely been used all along. Neffy calmly defended her master, insisting his intentions were never cruel. Despite her blank expression, questions about changes before her exile led to a quiet revelation: he had become a demon lord. The title once symbolized order in the town, but its legacy had since unraveled. A disturbing report revealed mages kidnapping young women, though the church claimed to have stopped them. Despite the resolution, townspeople remained upset due to the excessive donation fees demanded afterward. Resentment stirred, but Neffy reminded them the blame didn't lie with those who served under orders. Her gentle perspective shifted the mood, showing compassion instead of judgment. In that moment, admiration bloomed. Her kindness spoke louder than any defense could. Discussion turned serious as the group reflected on the church's stance. Demon lords must be eliminated, no matter the cost. Neffy began to understand her master's transformation into a demon lord might have forced him into conflict. A difficult question followed, casting suspicion: had Zagan ever participated in dark rituals or kidnappings? Without hesitation, she answered calmly, denying any such involvement. Her voice softened as she recalled his kindness, hidden beneath sharp words and distant behavior. Lulu admitted she had sensed it. Zagan held back in their duel simply because she was a woman. Her flustered reaction drew teasing, prompting laughter over her seemingly romantic expression. Quietly, she confessed her first impression: he looked like someone silently crying for help. Neffy listened closely as Lulu explained Zagan's struggle to express emotion, despite yearning for connection. For Neffy, realization struck: someone else understood her master's hidden kindness and pain. Though a touch of jealousy stirred, both girls found comfort in their shared understanding of Zagan. Memories flooded in: his kindness, his sincerity, and a deep certainty bloomed within her heart. With sudden determination, she stood and declared her intent to return to him. Faith in his strength filled her voice, but doubt lingered in her eyes. Even the strongest can fall. No one remains unscathed when left to face the world alone. Under the moonlight, Neffy wondered if her master still needed help, if he was silently struggling even now. With unwavering resolve, she expressed her wish to grow strong, someone he could truly rely on. Her declaration stunned her companions, who silently admired her determination. Lulu, inspired, pledged to support her as well in her own way. Though once adversaries, both now sought to clear his name and protect the person they believed in. Reflected on being saved twice, unable to repay the debt, a feeling both frustrating and humbling. The night wound down with lighthearted teasing, laughter, and a surprise bill handed off with a smile. Manuela called them friends, a word that left Neffy speechless and quietly moved. That simple bond was something she'd never experienced before, one she now treasured deeply. Together, the three embraced it, uncertain but sincere, a fragile friendship beginning to bloom. Tension exploded when nights arrived, revealed as the very ones who had hurt her master before. Accusations flew, chaos broke out, and Neffy's anger silently boiled over as friendship echoed in her heart. Dark energy burst forth, protective, violent, triggered by the storm of emotion surging inside her. Everyone froze, including Neffy. As the shadows spiraled out of control, Manuela rushed to protect her friends, pushing Chastel away from the spreading darkness. A shadowy figure watched as one target escaped, brushing it off without concern. Message followed. Zagan issued a challenge, forcing a choice. Shocked, Lulu realized everything had changed. Under the quiet moonlight, Zagan stood alone in the forest, reflecting on the silence. The peace was unfamiliar. 3 knights lay unconscious within a magic circle, defeated swiftly. Despite their strength, they had underestimated the trap set before them. Zagan recalled it wasn't his doing. The trap was crafted by Neffy. She had acted on her own, showing unexpected resolve and ability. Clenching his fist, he acknowledged their short time together. Only half a month had passed since they met, but she had changed everything. In town, Neffy smiled among villagers. Zagan believed she could find peace there. As he turned to leave, one knight stirred behind him. One soldier begged for mercy, pleading on behalf of Lady Chastel. Despite their own fates, they only wished for her safety. Zagan paused, surprised by the name. He didn't recognize it, but sensed urgency in their voices. A distant shout interrupted his thoughts. An avian woman descended violently, attacking without hesitation. Confusion spread as her actions contradicted the others' claims. While chaos unfolded, Zagan calmly observed the commotion. Irritated, he considered banishing the intruders using magic. Everything changed when he heard the truth. Both Neffy and Chastel had been taken. Shock struck him instantly. The situation had escalated. Neffy's image lingered in Zagan's thoughts. He had tried to stay away, but doubt crept in. Was it already too late? His mind raced. Helping her openly would mark her as his ally. Drawing the church's attention, he couldn't act recklessly. Summoning challenged his hesitation, snapping him out of his internal conflict. The choice was his alone, yet every second counted. The girl pleaded with emotion. Neffy had always intended to return. No matter how far she was pushed away, her heart belonged by his side, streamed as she accused him of indifference. Her pain struck deeply. Zagan clutched his chest. Tears welled up as she clenched her fists. The pain she felt now surpassed any wound from battle. Zagan stood in disbelief. Neffy had intended to return to him despite the harsh words he once spoke. Memories returned: quiet mornings, peaceful tea, unspoken feelings. Deep down, he had always known the truth in her silence. She truly harbored feelings for him. Even if he viewed himself as a villain, she had never turned away. The avian girl's words reached him with a calm expression. She thanked him. Clarity washed over him. His decision was made. Zagan didn't deny the accusation. He admitted that mages were selfish, using others like tools and disregarding life. Tightening his grip on his pendant, he reinforced the idea that mages sought only personal gain. It was their nature. Yet, with eyes full of resolve, he declared Neffy as his. Anyone who dared touch her would face his wrath. Though his hands would be stained, he accepted that. As the demon lord, he would use all his might to protect her. Magic surged beneath him, the circle activated. He was done waiting. The time to act had arrived. Zagan stood firm. He was going to rescue Neffy. Without hesitation, the winged girl declared she'd join. Neffy was her friend. The knights rushed him desperately, begging to help. Surrounded and clung to, Zagan gave in, agreeing to bring them along. Though she didn't know the shadow's origin, he did. With a serious expression, Zagan revealed he had already identified the true enemy. He moved swiftly through the cave. The path was cold, lifeless. He muttered bitterly, mages were beyond saving. At last, he found them. Neffy and Chastel were shackled in the dark, barely conscious. The rescue had begun. Neffy stirred and found Chastel beside her, both bound. Concerned, Chastel asked if she was hurt. Neffy quietly examined the chains. The collar and shackles pulsed with anti-magic properties. She recognized the design, but her strength wasn't enough to break them. She tested her mysticism, hoping it might work. Sadly, her magical aptitude still fell short, rendering her efforts useless. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from the cave's entrance. Both prisoners froze, glancing toward the source. As a familiar figure appeared, Neffy narrowed her eyes. Barbaros appeared before Neffy with a mocking smile. He scoffed at the idea of mages having friends and gripped her roughly. Revealing his past, he spoke of Andres, the first mage Zagan had killed. Barbaros had once been that man's student, but he quickly dismissed vengeance. He wasn't here to avenge Andres, claiming revenge was beneath a mage's concern. In truth, he had long despised his master. If Zagan hadn't ended him, Barbaros would have. Driven by envy, he believed Zagan had stolen everything: power, castle, even Neffy. And now, he intended to take it all back. Barbaros admitted his past attempts to manipulate the church and attack Zagan had failed miserably. His subordinates were no match. Chastel slowly pieced the truth together. The one behind the kidnapping it had been Barbaros all along. He mocked her late realization. She accused him of cruel schemes just to frame Zagan. Barbaros grinned, explaining the sacrifices were convenient, not essential. The ritual had to be done anyway. To rise as the next demon lord, he needed to prove his strength. Neffy's magic was key to unlocking the door. Despite his threats, Neffy remained calm. Her quiet defiance made his victory feel far less certain. Neffy softly refused to burden Zagan. She believed he would come, but wouldn't act in a way that caused him trouble. Looking Barbaros in the eyes, she declared the truth: Zagan had already inherited the title of Demon Lord. He recoiled in disbelief. Her words struck a nerve. Yet, Neffy remained firm. That truth was why she had been discarded. Rage twisted Barbaros' face. Zagan had taken everything his master's legacy, now even the Demon Lord's seat. With madness in his eyes, he lunged. If Zagan was a Demon Lord, then Barbaros would claim that title by force. Barbaros stood before the vast ritual circle. He sneered Zagan's title meant nothing. The spell was already in motion. Giselle cried out, offering herself in Nephi's place. She clanked her chains, declaring her resolve as a knight. Nephi listened silently. Being called a tool was nothing new. That label had followed her for as long as she remembered. But Master never saw her that way, not even once. Zagan gave her value beyond use tears. Welled as she vowed to return, she would stay by his side no matter what, just to make him smile again. Nephi crashed to the ground under Barbaros's strike. Doubt flooded her heart. Maybe she was unnecessary. Maybe Master would one day leave her behind. Still she stood. The pain didn't matter. Compared to her past, this was nothing. Eyes burning with conviction, she shouted the truth: she belonged to her master. Barbaros had no right to touch her. He lashed out in fury, but Nephi didn't flinch. His power clashed with resistance. A voice echoed in support. Zagan had arrived, under the moonlit cave. He stood tall. "That's why you're my student," he said. After a long silence, Zagan arrived at the cavern's core, facing Barbaros near the remnants of a massive arcane circle. The confrontation had been brewing for a week. Rather than answer directly, he recalled the moment doubts took root when the Face Ripper first emerged. Everything started to unravel. Barbaros stood calmly amid the shattered barrier, acknowledging it couldn't have been broken by a trembling mage alone. Someone else was involved. He pointed out Zagan's repeated visits, hinting they were never casual but rather driven by quiet investigation. With unwavering eyes, Zagan affirmed that suspicion was the only logical response. Nephi stood in silence, her presence catching everyone off guard. Her sudden appearance shifted the mood in the ruined hall. Rage sparked in Zagan's eyes as he pieced everything together. Without hesitation, he charged forward, magic igniting around him. A devastating blow shattered Barbaros' guard. Zagan struck with precision, targeting the hands first to disable any magical retaliation. And at their impact followed. This time his attack broke through the legs, ensuring his opponent could no longer stand. While Barbaros writhed in pain, Nephi's shackles clattered to the ground, marking the moment her captivity came to an end. Zagan, unsure of what to say, asked Nephi if she was in pain, concern etched across his face. She gently nodded, admitting it hurt physically and emotionally, but her gaze stayed steady. Stepping closer, Nephi embraced him softly, revealing it was his suffering that pained her more than anything else. Her hands trembled as she confessed her confusion, unsure what had happened, struggling with the thought of being unwanted. With tears falling, she declared she couldn't remain calm while he was hurting, her emotions finally spilling out in full. Across the broken ground, Zagan moves forward while keeping Nephi close to his side. A sharp memory surfaces in his mind, reminding him of a time when she was left alone. That regret hardens his resolve and pushes him to protect her without hesitation. Power gathers in his hand, spreading through the air as magic responds to his will. Nephi remains behind him, sheltered by his presence. From above, an enemy descends with overwhelming force, aiming to crush everything below. Zagan steps forward, unshaken, fully prepared to block the attack. Confidence settles in his gaze as he stands firm. Nothing threatens to reach Nephi while he remains standing. Water splashes as the enemy lands, weapon drawn and magic prepared. The strike is forceful, aimed with confidence. The magic circle activates, but something goes wrong. The flow of power falters and the enemy's expression shifts as control slips away. Zagan and Nephi watch from a short distance, noticing the sudden failure. The enemy staggers, unable to understand why the spell does not respond. Kneeling amid fading magic, the attacker realizes the technique has collapsed. The battlefield grows quiet as the threat weakens on its own. Calmly observing the result, Zagan stands beside Nephi. His earlier preparation has already decided the outcome. Leaving her safe, once again Zagan mirrors the enemy's magic circle with perfect accuracy, then alters his own formation. A violent distortion spreads through the activated magic. The balance collapses as resonance interferes, turning controlled power into unstable force. Memories surface of a young boy carving a spell into his hand, surviving through instinct rather than knowledge. The rebounding magic strikes the enemy instead, overwhelming him with his own power. Research, repetition, and survival converge into a decisive moment. Dozens of magic circles flood the battlefield as Zagan stands unmoved. The enemy realizes too late that the outcome was decided long before the attack began. The battlefield clears as scattered magic fades, leaving Zagan standing alone at the center. Shock spreads across the enemy's face while Zagan remains calm. The copied magic and its instant refinement reveal a gap in understanding that cannot be closed. A quiet confidence surrounds him as his ability becomes clear. What appears impossible to others is treated as a natural result of study and experience. His hand moves with precision, reshaping lingering magic into something new. Power responds smoothly, guided rather than forced. Multiple refined magic circles stabilize around him, formed from the enemy's own spells. The enemy stumbles backward, panic breaking through his composure as he realizes his power has been taken and turned against him. A sudden impact erupts as Zagan strikes, the force tearing through reinforced defenses. Magic shatters under raw strength, leaving no room for resistance. Floating magic circles fade as Zagan lowers his hand, the clash already decided. Nephi watches from behind him, unharmed amid the settling debris. The fallen opponent struggles among the ruins, weakened beyond recovery. Every defense he relied on has failed completely. With a final step forward, Zagan stands over the defeated foe. The battle ends in silence, victory secured through overwhelming control and resolve. The defeated mage collapses, desperation replacing arrogance as his strength fades. Injuries and exhaustion force him to lower himself, clinging to the ground in surrender. Zagan approaches at an unhurried pace, his footsteps echoing across the shattered terrain. A brief pause settles between them as their eyes meet. The enemy's fear mixes with confusion, unable to grasp the calm response he receives. Sudden power surges again as Zagan releases a final strike, not born of rage but certainty. The impact destroys the last remnants of resistance. Left trembling among the ruins, the fallen mage can only endure the outcome. Zagan turns away, the conflict resolved beyond doubt. With the tension broken, Zagan relaxes his posture and lets a light-hearted attitude surface. Zagan explains his lack of hostility through calm actions rather than force. His stance shows confidence without cruelty, signaling that the battle no longer needs to continue. The fallen mage hesitates, struggling between pride and survival. Confusion replaces fear as he realizes mercy is being offered without conditions. A sharp movement interrupts the moment, revealing the mage's lingering aggression. Zagan remains composed, prepared to respond if necessary. Instead of finishing the fight, Zagan chooses restraint control, not destruction, defines the end of the confrontation. The battlefield grows quiet as Zagan reflects on his own way of ruling. His confidence is unshaken, shaped by choices made without concern for convention. Standing beside Nephi, he makes his resolve clear through action. Her presence guides his ambition, placing her safety and freedom above all else. The defeated mage listens from the ground, realizing that mercy comes not from weakness but overwhelming authority. Turning away, Zagan leaves the fallen enemy behind with his pride intact. Control is maintained without unnecessary bloodshed. From a distance, allies observe the aftermath while Nephi watches quietly. The conflict ends with stability restored and Zagan's path firmly chosen. A violent surge spreads across the magic circle as residual power erupts outward. Zagan turns back after sensing movement, surprised by the change. The defeated mage struggles to rise, clearly shaken by what is happening. As the ground collapses, the mage realizes something went wrong during the earlier impact. Unstable magic reacts to the force used against it. Dark energy twists into a massive spiral, pulling everything toward its center. The battlefield transforms into a dangerous vortex. They are forced into motion as the strange mana spreads. The conflict ends, but a new and unpredictable threat emerges. The defeated mage trembles as he realizes the spell has gone beyond his control. Fear replaces intent while Zagan watches closely. From the damaged magic circle, a distorted entity begins to emerge. The battlefield shifts again, signaling the arrival of a far greater danger. Within the glowing magic circle, ancient inscriptions reacted to a careful touch. Suddenly, the ritual erupted with blinding light and violent force. The space distorted as overwhelming energy poured out, hinting that something beyond control had been drawn in. From the chaos, a massive shadow took shape, its form unstable and unnatural. Nearby, its presence alone pressed heavily on everyone watching. Lurching movements revealed the entity's incompleteness. A flaw in the summoning became clear, caused by missing steps and insufficient preparation. Glowing nodes flickered within the shadow's body, showing a being sustained only by raw magic rather than a true perfected existence. Shock spread across Zagan's face as the summoned presence exceeded every calculation. Far above him, the towering entity stretched upward, its structure marked by glowing paths of power. One truth became unavoidable. No human force could oppose it directly. Instead of attacking, the shadow lowered itself, bending its massive form towards Zagan. Submission replaced hostility, turning fear into deep confusion. A strange realization surfaced as the creature reacted to something unseen. The power was not obeying him by will alone. Glowing light answered from Zagan's hand, revealing an ancient seal that bound the being, completing the summoning in an unexpected way. On the rocky slope, the group gathered in silence as the weight of recent events settled in tension. Rose as knights confronted the situation with hostility and suspicion. Their expressions made it clear that cooperation came from necessity rather than trust. Amid the confusion, Neffy stayed close, quietly observing the strained exchange. Her presence softened the moment, though uncertainty still lingered in the air once the knights departed. The surroundings grew calm again. Left behind, Zagan stood apart, unsure how to respond to what had just unfolded. Turning back toward the cave, he addressed Barbaros with resolve, signaling a decision to move forward despite the unresolved conflict. Exhaustion showed on Barbaros as the danger finally passed. The existence of the summoned monster lingered in his thoughts. The shadow obeyed its final command and faded away, dissolving back into the world it came from. Silence returned, marking the end of the threat. With the crisis over, the mood shifted into something lighter. Zagan appeared calm, already thinking beyond the chaos that had just ended. As the last traces of magic vanished, only two figures remained behind. The empty space emphasized how suddenly the situation had changed. Standing alone together, Zagan and Neffy realized the battlefield had become quiet, leaving them facing each other with no distractions left. With the danger gone, uncertainty filled the quiet space between them. Neffy hesitated while Zagan struggled to understand what should come next. Gathering her resolve, Neffy turned toward him and expressed her feelings through action rather than fear. Relief followed as she accepted the path ahead without hesitation. The bond between them shifted from obligation into something chosen. Walking together across the open land, Zagan noticed a change in her presence. Confidence replaced the fragility she once carried. Stopping before him, Neffy asked for a new way to be seen. In that moment, their relationship quietly stepped into a different future. Emotion finally overflowed as Zagan revealed the kind of bond he desired. His resolve was clumsy but sincere, driven by fear of losing what mattered. Neffy listened in silence, her surprise clear as his words landed heavily. The moment stretched while both struggled to steady themselves. Nerves betrayed Zagan as he stumbled forward, turning confidence into awkward movement. The distance between them closed in an unplanned way. Grasping her gently, he made his intent unmistakable through action alone. The promise he offered carried permanence beyond fear or doubt. Expression softened into pure happiness. Her answer needed no words, sealing their bond with quiet certainty. The ring returned to Neffy's hands, carrying memories of how everything began. She held it carefully, aware of its weight beyond magic. Hesitation flickered across her face as she considered its meaning. What once symbolized ownership now felt uncertain and fragile. Facing Zagan, she acknowledged the bond that first tied their lives together. The past was not denied, only re-examined. As he drew closer, the space between them softened into mutual understanding. What they shared no longer needed labels to exist. Turning back with quiet curiosity, Neffy searched for words to define their connection, sensing it had become something entirely new. Zagan froze under the weight of his own uncertainty, overwhelmed by feelings he could not properly name or control. As the sun rose over the mountains, he reflected on his role as a demon lord and the quiet wish in his heart to care for Neffy correctly. Far away, rumors spread among townsfolk about the rise of a new demon lord, mixing fear with curiosity as his presence became known. Walking through the streets, Zagan moved forward with resolve, accepting both his title and the path he would choose from now on. Within a towering library packed with endless shelves, inspecting the strange seal on his hand while surrounded by scattered tomes and ancient records. From old manuscripts, fragmented accounts emerge about demons, binding seals, and forgotten forces. After months of solitary research, countless books are reviewed, yet even legacy texts fail to reveal clear answers, leaving his efforts unresolved. The heavy silence breaks when a faint noise echoes through the hall, causing him to pause and sense someone approaching from behind. Nearby, an elf girl appears unexpectedly, startled by his presence, while the demon lord turns slowly, unaware this quiet encounter will alter his future. Neffy stands uncertain, her expression tense as she struggles to decide how to respond, clearly unsure of her place beside the demon lord. Nearby, Zagan watches her quietly from the shelves, observing her reaction while considering what she truly wants from him. As she reflects on his recent exhaustion from research, concern begins to replace hesitation and her resolve slowly forms. Without warning, her sudden decision overwhelms Zagan, leaving him frozen and visibly shaken by her unexpected affection. Later, the mood shifts as she prepares a carefully arranged meal, offering comfort through action while Zagan remains stunned, beginning to accept her gentle support. At dining table, Zagan listens as the meal is presented in careful detail, taking in the unfamiliar dishes arranged before him with quiet focus. As he tastes the food, warmth spreads across his expression, and a sense of relief settles in as the simple meal exceeds his expectations. The moment grows lighter when dessert preparations begin, and the atmosphere shifts from tension to cautious comfort within the room. Attention turns to the helper involved in the cooking, whose presence causes mild confusion and concern about what was prepared. Zagan stiffens at its unusual appearance, realizing this calm moment still holds surprises he is not ready for. The sweetness of the dessert hits Zagan all at once, catching him off guard as his composure breaks under the unfamiliar taste and emotion. Outside the dining room, his thoughts drift as he reflects on how something so simple could bring warmth and calm he had never known before. That fragile peace shatters when a violent impact erupts above the castle, sending shockwaves through the air and breaking the quiet moment. Back at the table, awareness sharpens as the presence of outsiders becomes clear, forcing Zagan to shift from comfort to alert readiness. In the darkness, his eyes harden, signaling a return to his true nature as danger draws near. The castle walls shatter as a heavily armored intruder forces his way inside, crushing stone and barriers while advancing without hesitation. Explosions echo through the grounds as traps fail, one after another, leaving clear damage that marks the intruder's direct path forward. Zagan observes the situation calmly, recognizing the skill behind the intrusion while noting the precision used to bypass his defenses. Inside the dining hall, tension rises as the intruder appears before the table, drawing attention away from the interrupted meal. The newcomer reveals himself as another Demon Lord candidate, standing confidently before Zagan as an unavoidable confrontation begins. At the table, Zagan continues eating without urgency, focused on finishing his meal despite the looming threat nearby. Suddenly, the intruder attacks, swinging with brute force and attempting to crush him through sheer strength rather than magic. The strike is deflected midair, revealing the enemy's reliance on physical power as Zagan counters with precise control. Irritation flashes across Zagan's face as debris scatters close to the table, turning the battle personal rather than strategic. With his priorities shifted, Zagan steadies himself, balancing calm restraint and overwhelming power as the confrontation fully begins. After the battle, Zagan surveys the quiet room, ensuring the intruders remain unconscious while guiding Neffy to stand down and rest. Beside the bed, Zagan notices the small horned girl sleeping peacefully, realizing her vulnerability and accepting responsibility for her protection. Zagan stands frozen in his mansion room after realizing he struck a small elf. Shock sets in as the memory of the moment replays in his mind. Guilt overtakes his usual composure, and panic replaces confidence. He quickly checks her condition and determines she is unconscious rather than seriously hurt. His focus shifts from fear to care as he prepares to help her recover. Carries the elf through the halls while others observe quietly. His actions show concern and restraint instead of authority. The elf rests safely in bed, breathing calmly. Zagan watches over her, resolved to protect her from harm going forward. Awakening in an unfamiliar room, the small elf reacts with confusion and fear. Suddenly, she strikes out in panic, driven by instinct rather than malice. The attack lands, yet it only highlights the imbalance between her strength and his restraint. Instead of retaliating, the Demon Lord endures the blow. His resolve wavers as he struggles between self-defense and the need to remain gentle for her sake. Eventually, the elf's emotions spill over, revealing desperation and insecurity. Her actions stem from weakness and a desire to survive in a harsh world. The Demon Lord accepts her state and her potential, marking the beginning of an unexpected bond. Zagan calmly explains the limits of his magic while observing the elf closely. His composed posture contrasts with the tension building between them. Demonstrations of power follow, revealing how magic and physical strength differ among races. A sudden realization strikes her, and fear ripples through her body. Zagan notices the change immediately, studying her reaction instead of pressing forward. As her past and weakness surface, fragments of harsher truths emerge. Zagan listens carefully, recognizing the burden she carries simply by surviving. Understanding dawns within him as he compares her behavior to his own past. Sympathy replaces suspicion, quietly reshaping how he sees her. Zagan pieces together the elf's actions by reflecting on her past behavior and desperation. Taking control of the situation, he asserts his authority as a demon lord. His stance is firm, yet his intent shifts away from violence. Instead of harsh punishment, Zagan assigns her a role close to him. The decision places responsibility on her while keeping her under protection. Time passes as he explains expectations through action and guidance. His focus lies in teaching structure, limits, and basic understanding of right and wrong. Realizing she is not in danger, she begins to see Zagan as a guardian rather than a threat. Zagan considers the elf's strange habits and begins to understand that her actions come from survival rather than defiance. Annoyance flickers across his face as her behavior tests his patience. Even so, restraint guides his response instead of anger. Memories of abandoned children surface in his thoughts, forcing him to reflect on how desperation shapes morality. A quiet recollection forms of children sharing food under harsh sunlight. That image lingers as proof of how kindness once appeared in his own life. Returning to the present, Zagan acknowledges her lingering insecurity. His concern deepens as he accepts responsibility for her well-being. A nearly empty bowl sits before the small elf as she stares down at it in silence. The lack of food clearly unsettles her, revealing lingering anxiety tied to scarcity. Frustration surfaces as she struggles to understand kindness shown without conditions. Zagan reacts sharply when waste is implied, his values forged by hardship rather than comfort. Cautiously, the elf tastes the meal and focuses on eating every last bite. Hunger gives way to concentration, and suspicion slowly loosens its grip. Relief spreads across her face as the food proves satisfying. Watching her reaction, Zagan quietly recognizes progress in her sense of safety and trust. After the meal, the room grows calm as Neffy eats quietly beside the others. Zagan remains still, observing without interference while her tension slowly fades. Once she finishes, uncertainty returns and she hesitates, unsure of what will happen next. Her guarded posture reflects lingering fear of being abandoned. Zagan turns to leave, assigning Neffy to help under supervision. His departure creates unease, drawing out her suppressed anxiety. Fear finally breaks through as she questions his trust and intentions. The possibility of being left alone again weighs heavily on her. Pausing at the door, Zagan corrects her misunderstanding. By acknowledging her hidden strength, he leaves her with reassurance rather than doubt. Shock freezes Neffy in place as new information settles in. Her widened eyes reveal how unprepared she is for sudden change. Later, Zagan walks through the castle halls while matters of guests and rooms are quietly handled behind him. Routine actions fail to distract him from lingering concern. His thoughts drift outward toward distant walls and open skies. Reflection replaces urgency as he weighs the aftermath of recent events. Elsewhere, decisions are made within sacred stone halls. Gratitude and conflict collide as past rescues influence difficult judgments. The suspension marks a turning point, signaling consequences that will reshape future paths. Chastel Lilkevist is informed that her role as captain of the Holy Knights has been suspended indefinitely. A punishment she didn't see coming decision, her comrades argue for her, urging the church to reconsider the consequences of their actions. Alone, Chastel reflects on the situation, realizing that the church's true corruption is far greater than any demon lord she's faced. The demon lord offers an unconventional solution, suggesting she abandon the rules and take control of her destiny. Though tempted, Chastel resolves to follow her own path, determined not to forsake the principles that have guided her thus far. Chastel kneels before the elder priest, who pleads for her to endure the punishment. She remains silent, contemplating the betrayal she feels from the very institution she once served. Suddenly, a terrifying news arrives. Raphael Hurndal, the wielder of the Holy Sword, is coming known for his ruthless ways. His arrival spells disaster. Realizes the church sees her as a threat. She's marked for purge and apostate. Her decision is clear. She must leave before it's too late. Zagan watches from a distance, unsure of her choice, but accepting whatever path she takes. As Chastel moves forward, a child asks if anything bad will happen, fearing the worst. The child, curious, inquires if Chastel made the soup they had enjoyed. With a simple yes, she answers, her face betraying a hint of sadness. Full, another servant, questions if Chastel is afraid of Zagan. Chastel, though uncertain, assures him she isn't scared, but her eyes tell a different story, making light of the situation. Jokes about Zagan's appearance, suggesting that with a wider mouth he might look more handsome. However, Chastel knows the true threat is not in appearances. Zagan's power is terrifying, and there is nothing she can do against him. Chastel, contemplating her situation, asks Neffy why she stays with Zagan, a man who treats her as an equal, not a slave. Neffy, in response, wonders if Foal has a place where he belongs too. Chastel's mind drifts, realizing her own place is not where she thought it was. After hearing Neffy's question, remains silent, her heart conflicted. Meanwhile, Zagan stands outside, irritated by the child's behavior. He sighs in frustration, tired of dealing with brats. Several days pass, and life continues. The mundane routine of everyday tasks takes over, though the looming tension never leaves the air. Chastel reflects on Valefar's obedience, noticing that she started to lower her guard around him. Deep in thought, looks over a mysterious book. He feels that something is missing, and frustration grows as he realizes he must investigate further. In the library, Zagan grows more determined. He can't ignore the fact that the demon lord he's seeking has hidden something crucial, possibly about the demon race itself. Foal, pretending to be playful, teases Zagan about attacking him from behind. Zagan brushes it off, though the tension is palpable. A chilling encounter occurs when Zagan faces a former enemy. The man swearing vengeance conversation had taken place recently. She told someone they could challenge her any time, but now doubt lingers in her mind, smirking. Zagan repeats those words, offering the same challenge. However, consequences are clear. Each loss will extend the challenger's service. Foal, witnessing the exchange, looks concerned. Surprised, Chastel remains quiet, the weight of Zagan's words heavy on her. Dinner is served, and while they eat, Zagan asks if the food meets expectations. Chastel remains lost in thought, wondering about her next steps. Later, with a hint of regret, Chastel apologizes for interrupting earlier. Her words show respect for Zagan, but also a quiet unease. Finishing her meal, Chastel assures Zagan that everything will be fine, yet his expression suggests he's contemplating something more. Zagan mentions bringing her to Marchoja's castle the next day to investigate. His tone is calm, but there is a hidden urgency behind the suggestion. Chastel, alarmed, questions whether Zagan truly means to let her explore his library. The idea of stealing knowledge from a dead demon lord feels wrong to her. Unbothered, Zagan casually responds that knowledge is meant to be taken, and he feels no hesitation in acquiring it however necessary. Confusion fills Chastel's mind. Despite Zagan's overwhelming power, he doesn't use it to control others. Zagan, with a hint of warning, tells Foal that no matter how long she has lived as a dragon or how skilled she is as a mage, her eyes widen as she's caught off guard by Zagan's words. Realizing his words had hurt, quickly tries to comfort her. Gently, he caresses her head, worried that his bluntness may have caused her to cry. With a sigh, he tells her to eat her food. Nefi's cooking will surely cheer her up. After a moment of silence, Foal shyly looks up at Zagan and quietly tells him that he can call her Foal from now on. The sky sparkles with stars as Zagan watches with surprise. Nefi, standing beside him, smiles brightly, as if finding comfort in the moment. Later that night, Foal, exhausted from the day, falls asleep right after eating. Zagan remarks, amused, that dragons or not, kids will always be kids. Nefi reflects on her own past, remembering how she too felt the same sense of unease when she first arrived. But things had changed since then. Zagan, realizing he called Foal a thing again, quickly apologizes, feeling embarrassed. As he gently grabs her hand to remove the spoon she's still holding while asleep, Zagan observes how deeply she's resting. He wonders if she's dreaming about other parents, a thought that lingers in his mind. Nefi, observing the scene, comments that it feels like they have a child, despite the unusual situation. Embarrassed, Zagan quickly tries to clarify that he's simply protecting her. Like a guardian, Nefi, with a teasing smile, insists that he's more like a parent than he realizes. Flustered by the notion, awkwardly adjusts his cloak, avoiding Nefi's gaze. Foal, meanwhile, blushes, her own feelings conflicted. Overwhelmed by the thought of having a family, quietly reflects on how a demon lord like him might wish for an ordinary life. But that seems laughable. Under the stars, Zagan reflects on the possibility of attaining happiness, feeling a glimmer of hope for the future. While walking through town, the group entered a boutique where Foal tried on a cute new outfit. The excitement grew chaotic as two women showered Foal with praise, asking to take her home. Zagan stepped in, clearly frustrated, insisting she wasn't a toy to be passed around. They left the shop shortly after, with Zagan reflecting that despite the commotion, choosing that store had been the right decision. Outside, Foal gave a small twirl in her outfit. She turned to Zagan and softly expressed her gratitude. Surprised, Zagan awkwardly responded. Foal gently took his hand, her silent gesture saying more than words could. Zagan walked silently. Foal gripping his hand, emotions stirred within him, an unfamiliar warmth he couldn't place. Conflicted thoughts clouded his mind. The feeling wasn't love nor duty, but something deeper, a need to protect. As they strolled through the town, he couldn't shake the thought that Barbaros would mock him for this softness. Elsewhere, a fallen warrior lamented her weakness. She had lost everything, her armor, her role, but still longed to act. Gazing at Nefi and Foal knew his goal. He didn't seek to interfere, only to guard their future and nurture peace. Before a quiet grave, Chastel smiled faintly, content with the thought of being remembered by those she cherished. Walking alone through the town, she observed the small group ahead, Zagan, Nefi, and Foal growing into something close to a family. A soft realization crossed her heart. She didn't need to interfere. Witnessing their happiness was enough. But as she turned a corner, the three unexpectedly appeared before her, their expressions filled with surprise. Caught off guard, she stared at Zagan in disbelief, voice trembling as his name escaped her lips in shock. Chastel blurted out a shocking question, mistaking the trio's closeness for a new family with a child. The group froze in blushing panic. Flustered Neffy and Zagan scrambled to correct the misunderstanding. Chastel, suddenly unsure, stepped back as confusion spread. Zagan's sharp gaze turned to her. Without recognition in his eyes, he asked a chilling question: who was she? Tears welled up, her heart cracked. His words, unintentional yet cold, struck harder than any blade. Eventually, recognition returned. Chastel forced a smile, asking only to be remembered even for a moment by those she held dear. Just as tension settled, a group of knights stormed in, calling out to Chastel and glaring at Zagan with hostility. They accused him of wrongdoing despite his confusion. Zagan tried to explain, but the knights wouldn't listen. Foal, sensing danger, stepped in. Her calm warning reminded them of the innocent bystanders nearby and the potential harm. Ignoring the nuance, the knights quickly ushered Chastel away, insisting she prioritize her own safety. Neffy quietly expressed concern. Zagan, watching her go, remarked that Chastel likely had others she could count on even if he wouldn't be one of them. Zagan glanced at Fall with concern. Though Chastel had left, his priority remained her safety. Fall, unfazed, expressed her distrust of Holy Knights, a sentiment Zagan found entirely reasonable. Still, as the knights disappeared into the distance, unease lingered. Zagan feared this encounter might spark future conflict. Their journey continued to a cavernous space where a massive sunken structure emerged, its size and detail awe-inspiring to young Fall. Explained the building's origin. What once stood above now rested underground, twisted by powerful magic likely the work of Marchosias. As Fall stared at the towering structure, a strange sensation welled up inside her. Something about the place felt oddly familiar. Standing before the ancient gate, she declared with certainty this was once a home to dragons. Zagan, intrigued, confirmed the similarities to his own memories. He instructed Fall to report any signs of dragons and allowed her to explore freely. They stepped into the dark interior, the doors creaking behind them as shadows swallowed their forms. A silent tension filled the air. With wary eyes, the trio advanced into the mysterious, forgotten depths. Curious lights danced across the floor, drawing everyone's attention. A cautious grip tightened as unease crept in. Suddenly, a towering statue crackled with dormant energy, its form twisted and fractured by time and magic. They observed in silence, possibly a golem or chimera, crafted long ago to protect this place. Now lifeless. No one dared approach. One wrong move could awaken its fury, so they chose to move on without risk. Ahead, a large magic circle came into view. Fall questioned its nature, her expression unreadable as she awaited an answer. A complex magic circle sprawled across the floor. Fall recognized it instantly, something only dragons could craft. Pleased with her discovery, she offered a report as instructed. Zagan praised her, while she speculated it might conceal a hidden passage. With a nod of confidence, she confirmed she could open it. Light flared from the circle as magical energy stirred. Neffy's expression shifted, blush creeping in. She hesitated to speak while something stirred within her heart. Zagan looked on, puzzled. Her silence wasn't refusal. It felt like a quiet plea he couldn't yet understand. Something caught his attention. He stepped closer to Neffy, asking her to stay still as he reached out. Gentle pats landed on her head, wide-eyed at first. She slowly softened under the unexpected affection. A subtle breath escaped her lips. Her ears twitched slightly, unable to hide how sensitive she was to the gesture, though she usually kept her composure. Being doted on like this wasn't unpleasant. Rarely did moments like these happen alone. Just then, Fall announced the door had opened. Flustered but trying to play it cool, he gave her an awkward compliment. A heavy gate creaked open. They descended cautiously, shadows stretching along the spiral staircase as tension rose with every step. At the bottom, a massive library unfolded before them, walls lined with endless shelves and intricate circles etched into the floor. Instructions came quickly. Any text mentioning demons or the Demon Lord's seal had to be gathered. Something deeper lay buried here. Foal tilted her head, curious. Somehow, Zagan had understood Neffy's feelings earlier without a single word spoken. A quiet confession slipped out. Foal, usually so composed, admitted to feeling a touch of jealousy surrounded by rows of ancient books. Foal quietly listened. A millennium of life, he said, should be enough to understand things without speaking. That number sank in. Her voice trembled as she asked if he'd stay with her always. Without hesitation, she declared her wish. No matter what lay ahead, she wanted to remain by his side. His reply was awkward but sincere. Words failed him, but his presence didn't. Something caught his eye. With sudden urgency, he reached for a book she held, one tied to the 12 holy swords. Zagan discovered that the Holy Sword's inscription matched the symbol on the Demon Lord's seal. By comparing the two, he confirmed their shared origin. With this link, he realized that investigating the Holy Swords might reveal the truth behind the Demon Lord's seal. Inside a solemn cathedral, footsteps rang out across the stone floor as a cloaked figure approached a gathering near the altar. Lowering her head with grace, the young woman offered a formal greeting to the figure standing before her. Clad in ornate armor, Raphael Hurndal made his imposing presence known, a man of rank and reputation. With a sharp gaze, he questioned her identity, intrigued by the legend of the Maiden of the Holy Sword. Though reminded of her punishment, she remained composed, quietly accepting his words without protest. Chastel confronted him, head-on, demanding to know how many mages he had slain in cold blood. Suppressing her fear, she declared her resolve, rejecting the idea that such killings were anything worth admiring. The knights behind her panicked, pleading for caution, swearing to defend her even at the cost of their lives. Rather than anger, Raphael burst into laughter, amused by her boldness, acknowledging it as a rare act of defiance. In an instant, the mood turned deadly, his eyes flared, threatening to send her pride straight to the underworld. A knight rushed forward, alarmed, demanding an explanation as Lord Raphael struck down his subordinates without warning. Clavel, a high-ranking church official, stepped in with authority, declaring his responsibility to protect those under his command. Raphael ignored the protest and shifted focus, questioning the whereabouts of the girl's holy sword, knowing it remained unusable while she lived. He made his point clear: as long as she remained alive, the sword's power was locked away. Their argument escalated, clashing over rights and power, with Raphael asserting that clergy held no authority over wielders. Chastel stepped forward, her voice unwavering as she condemned Raphael's recklessness, warning that wielders without restraint were no better than criminals. Amused yet provoked, Raphael reacted, fiercely shocked that she dared to challenge him a second time and intrigued by her defiance. With a chilling declaration, he turned to Clavel, threatening to end Chastel's life unless she was surrendered. Left with no choice, Clavel led Chastel away from the chamber, tension heavy as they approached a sacred door. In a solemn gesture, he returned her holy sword, unsure whether he was granting hope or inviting execution. With quiet conviction, Clavel expressed his belief that Chastel had the strength to face her fate with her own hands. Gripping the holy sword, she accepted his trust and prepared herself for what must come. Her thoughts fixed on one man, Raphael stood in silence, puzzled by her regained weapon, unsure whether he had been manipulated or had made the choice himself. Elsewhere, a young man was caught off guard by teasing words, shocked by rumors of adopting a child, annoyed and confused. He questioned how anyone even knew about it in the first place. Barbaros, lounging in public with a smug grin, confronted the young man with wild rumors of kidnapping and a stolen child. As the man tried to walk away, Barbaros clung to him dramatically, lamenting his effort in bringing rare alcohol. Between sips, the topic shifted to the mysterious girl Barbaros pried, wondering if she was another of his disciples. He mused aloud about her identity, linking her to infamous mages, while the young man kept quiet, avoiding direct answers. Startled by the name Velevar, the man recalled a recent masked attacker, unsure how to explain the strange encounter. Barbaros raised an eyebrow, half serious, as he asked if the masked attacker had once again been tossed outside to his fate. With a smirk, he commented on the man's rumored dragon form, pondering aloud how even his corpse could serve as a powerful relic. The conversation shifted back to the girl, whom the young man dismissed as an adopted child, offering no clear details. Barbaros collapsed in laughter, unable to process the absurdity, while his companion looked on, silently judging his antics. Finally sobering, Barbaros revealed a real reason: a problematic figure was heading to the church. Rumors of Raphael's 500th mage kill spread fast. His chosen target stirred curiosity. Why now, and why alone? Whispers told of him slaying a dragon and consuming its flesh to gain power, a tale both shocking and plausible. Though the church forbade hunting dragons, such facts remained unofficial, explained only in hushed tones over drinks. In a rare moment of sincerity, an apology was offered, along with quiet tribute over shared memories and grudges. Arm draped around shoulders, Barbaros suggested cooperation, while his companion recoiled, unimpressed by liquor-stained sincerity and sudden warmth. A drink was poured with casual confidence, boasting of capability. Trust, however, wasn't so easily earned. Without hesitation, the bold request to manage Marcho Caius's legacy was rejected, met with disbelief and sarcasm. Suspicion lingered. Hidden motives were expected, and deception wouldn't be surprising from someone so sly. The door creaked open as a compromise was offered: books instead of authority. Acceptance came with a grin. Leaning in with playful intent, Barbaros clarified one last thing: he'd be picking the books and didn't want second-rate choices. Boots echoed through the bar as someone asked about the infamous dragon killer Holy Knight. A vague answer followed. He was an older brute with a scar slashing across his face. Recalling a similar man, the listener pondered the coincidence, warned that eye contact might seal one's fate. Heavy steps stopped behind them. Silence fell. Raphael towered over their table, confirming the guess with a single line. Stunned faces froze mid-drink, realization crashing in as the very legend they spoke of now stood at arm's length. The tavern fell silent as the imposing knight, Raphael Hurandel, entered. His sudden presence stunned the two cloaked figures at the counter. Raphael's intense glare signaled hostility. His eyes locked onto someone he clearly recognized. Tension thickened in the air. The long-haired man leapt up in shock, startled by Raphael's appearance. Patrons began whispering as the atmosphere turned uneasy. Drawing his weapon, the man prepared to attack, but the younger mage quickly cast a barrier to stop him, halting the conflict. Calm returned. Raphael assessed the mage, impressed. He acknowledged the demon lord's restraint and accepted the offered seat. With arms crossed and expression stern, Raphael stared down at Zagan, who met his gaze without a word. Rather than confront him directly, Raphael claimed he only came for a drink. Zagan, unsure, allowed him to join. Their tense moment was interrupted when a man rushed in, pleading for someone to heal his unconscious daughter. As Barbaros reluctantly tried to help, others began to comment on Zagan's presence, mistakenly calling him a leader. Lowering his mug, Raphael introduced himself and explained that he had come to meet Zagan based on a comrade's recommendation. Zagan smirked, exchanging sharp remarks with Raphael about their fearsome appearances, each sizing up the other with subtle tension. Barbaros entered the scene, wary of Raphael's reputation for hunting mages, and reminded him there were two before him now. Instead of reacting with aggression, Raphael dismissed the concern for him. Eliminating threats before they became problems was simple strategy. Turning to Zagan, he brought up a past battle. His tone shifted, curious whether the mage had really fought Castell. Thoughtful and composed. Admitted Castell had been one of the strongest opponents he'd ever encountered. Eyes narrowing, he processed the implication someone powerful enough could become a threat to the church. Rather than avoid the subject, Raphael laid it out plainly. Objecting to a demon lord's death was, in itself, a fatal offense. Barbaros slammed his hand down, frustrated by her recklessness. Despite agreeing, he still recognized her stubborn nature. With nothing more to say, Raphael stood and made his exit, leaving an air of finality behind. Only then did the realization set in. His purpose had been to assess Castell's relationship with them, not seek bloodshed directly. Quietly reflecting, he acknowledged her value. Losing her would bring sorrow to many in the town. Without hesitation, a clear warning was given: this land belonged to him, and any threat would be met with force. Asked why he defended her so fiercely, he answered plainly: his identity as a demon lord demanded pride and resolve. Laughter erupted from Raphael as he walked away, thrilled to find the evil the church feared so much. Silence returned. Arms crossed, the two mages stood behind the bar once more, thoughts heavy but purpose firm. Disdain lingered in the air. Neither had a fond view of holy knights, though the idea of killing one came off a bit extreme. Caught off guard, Barbaros stared blankly when told to handle it himself. Confusion turned to outrage as he grabbed Zagan's collar. Demanding clarity, the request wasn't for battle, it was to check on Castell. Abilities like his weren't common as purgatory. He could traverse dimensions, summon with ease, and even mimic shadows after one glance. Before leaving, he questioned the motive. Zagan didn't waver. He'd pay the favor back, no matter the target's title. With a sharp glare and a swirl of magic, Barbaros vanished, leaving behind only a bitter warning. An empty bar and a fading wisp remained. Not only had he vanished mid-mission, but also left his tab unpaid. Typical. Beyond the tavern and into the calm of night, Zagan was greeted warmly by Neffy's gentle voice. Inside, the library buzzed softly. Full sat among a stack of books, explaining how she'd waited just to see him. Hearing her words echoed back made him pause. A promise to stay by her side for 1,000 years, he meant it. A young dragon's grief echoed across time, with lifespans spanning millennia. Forming bonds became a challenge of fate. Silence fell as Neffy quietly confessed her own longing for a time together that may not last forever. No hesitation came from Zagan. His words were firm, his promise immediate. A future with her was all that mattered. Suddenly their eyes met, a quiet moment stretched between them. Tension replaced by surprise. Thoughts raced, scents, sights, and subtle details overwhelmed her senses. Every little thing about him felt closer than ever. Heartbeat pounding, he reached out gently, brushing her cheek as her name left his lips. Eyes wide, she whispered back moments from closing the distance between them. Before anything could happen, a magical pulse shattered the tension. Urgency slammed into the quiet. From another room, shouting erupted. While the others fumbled for words, Zagan remained unreadable. Darkness loomed behind Barbaros, fury bubbling as he prepared to unleash chaos, though no one seemed to know why. Chastel's limp body hit the floor as Barbaros returned, fulfilling the request to check on her with her life hanging by a thread. Without hesitation, he held out the poisoned cup. Whatever she drank had been laced, and treatment couldn't wait. Just as things seemed to settle, a groggy voice interrupted. Full stirred, unaware of the chaos unfolding. But awareness returned fast. Rage sparked in her eyes, and in a blink, she lunged at the holy knight. Zagan intercepted the strike mid-air, his back turned, shielding everyone behind him with unwavering resolve. Tension pulsed in the air as Foal demanded an answer. Zagan calmly reminded her Chastel was a guest, not an enemy. Without looking up, she admitted it. Becoming a mage had never been about power, only vengeance against holy knights. The memory still haunted her. A wielder of a holy sword had taken her father, shattering her world. Zagan didn't judge. Instead, he pointed out the truth. Killing Chastel wouldn't bring her justice, only more obstacles. Fury erupted in her voice. What did he know of revenge? To her, his words rang hollow, no matter how true. Voice calm but sharp, Zagan explained what revenge truly meant: breaking someone to the edge of despair, not ending them swiftly. Simply killing them wouldn't be enough. Satisfaction only comes after justice feels complete. He admitted his own failure. Despite his anger, the act of killing hadn't healed anything inside him. Suddenly, one of the castle's odd residents chimed in, ready to teach everyone the proper way to seek vengeance. Torture tools and all tension gave way to awkward peace. A soft smile formed on Zagan's face as everyone slowly returned to calm. Under the starry sky, a question lingered in the air, casting doubt over his words toward his adopted daughter. The girl slowly opened her eyes in an unfamiliar bed, her expression dazed as she lay in silence. She sat up in surprise upon noticing a man reading beside her. Calmly, he acknowledged that she had finally awakened. Confused, she was told she had been poisoned. Zagan explained it was Nephi who had cured her, urging her to express her thanks. Trying to recall the events, she remembered receiving an anonymous letter that led her to this situation. As realization dawned, she clutched the letter tightly. The words "the symbiotic faction" left her visibly stunned. In the shadowed corridor, a cloaked figure explained their stance: mages should be controlled, not slain. This belief guided their actions. Extending a hand, the figure offered her a place among their ranks, suggesting she might need protection after defying the church. He advised her not to delay her answer. As he turned to leave, she wondered if he might be connected to Clavel. Before departing, he left her with a word: Orobus, a token she could use if she ever required their support. When asked if it was his name, he replied ambiguously. It was both his name and not, perhaps, belonging to their leader. The cloaked man assured her that the name would offer protection from any danger. As the wind stirred around her, he vanished into the darkness. Trusting him felt risky. But survival mattered more in a world where people like Raphael posed constant threats. Even with survival in mind, she felt lost. Her past as a holy knight no longer offered her a place to return to or a future to rely on. While reflecting at the church, she drank tea. Moments later, her vision blurred, and she collapsed, realizing too late she had been poisoned again. Though Raphael seemed likely, she hesitated. Something about this betrayal felt different. Upon hearing the name Raphael, Zagan expressed mild irritation, recalling the man's brashness during a past encounter that ruined his quiet moment. He stood and explained that, as a friend of Nephi's, they would take care of her, at least until she had recovered fully. Just as he began to leave, she reached out and gently tugged at his cloak, silently pleading for him not to walk away. Turning around, Zagan asked what she wanted. Caught off guard, she hesitated, unsure how to put her feelings into words. Finally, she looked at him and quietly asked if he could stay with her for just a little while longer. Zagan turned away, his voice low, rather than respond to her directly. He suggested she ask Nephi for such emotional matters. Disheartened by his cold response, she whispered an apology. Her gaze dropped as she withdrew, accepting the rejection quietly. Yet minutes later, she noticed Zagan sitting nearby again. He claimed he was just reading, not wanting to disturb Nephi at this hour. While watching him in silence, she apologized once more. Conflicted, she questioned her feelings, unsure of what she truly desired from him. Eventually, she admitted to herself it wasn't jealousy. She didn't want to interfere, she simply wished for both Zagan and Nephi to be happy. Late at night, she gazed up at the stars, wondering how she might fit into the peaceful world that Zagan and Nephi shared. Her answer came in the most unexpected way as she found herself dressed like a maid, broom in hand, utterly confused by the situation. She protested loudly, reminding everyone of her status as a former holy knight. Attempting to greet Zagan's adopted daughter, she was instead met with harsh rejection and a rude nickname that left her speechless. Zagan explained the girl's behavior. Her father had been killed by a holy sword wielder, something that cast a shadow over the knight's own past. Advised leaving the girl alone for a while, explaining her pride would stop her from doing menial tasks. Though it wasn't her fault, he expected her to resist or withdraw quietly, but instead, something completely different unfolded before anyone could predict it. Suddenly, the entire castle echoed with an ear-piercing scream, shaking the halls and sending birds scattering into the sky. Letting out a sigh, Zagan closed his book and muttered in annoyance. Clearly, something had gone wrong again. Rushing into the room, she flailed in panic about a frog. Zagan tried not to laugh, but Neffy reminded him of his earlier comment about her pride. Watching the chaos unfold, Zagan remarked that the girl was still a child at heart. He admitted feeling guilty for how roughly he treated her at first. Though she wasn't hit, he believed he might have gone too far, confused by his logic. She blurted out a request for equal treatment even if it meant being hit, leaving Zagan flustered and defensive. Trying to satisfy her in his own way, he tossed a pillow at her. It missed, and she clumsily crashed to the floor. As the dust settled, Zagan asked if she felt better. She looked up, cheeks flushed, surprised by the warmth behind his concern. When she asked if he had been worried, Zagan brushed it off with a vague response, refusing to give a clear answer. Over time, Foal's pranks on Chastel became more frequent, turning everyday life at the castle into a series of slapstick mishaps. New rules were established: no tricks during meals or bathing. Even Foal had to agree, though she rarely obeyed without a mischievous smirk. Screams became a common sound in the halls. Still, signs of warmth began to emerge, hinting that the two might eventually get along. But when night fell, Foal's smile faded. Alone in the dark, she wandered through memories, softly calling out for a father who would never return. In her dream, Foal faced a monstrous threat. Her small frame stood fearless as she cut down beasts with terrifying precision. She jolted awake, breath heavy. The images of her nightmare lingered, but determination flared behind her eyes. Silently slipping out of her room, she wandered the halls, gripping her hand tightly. Her mind focused on one clear intent. Standing at Chastel's bedside, Foal raised her clawed hand high. What appeared like a dramatic showdown was only a midnight mission: frog removal. Chastel remained asleep, unaware of the small hero by her side, her cheek puffed out as she mumbled, oblivious to the night's chaos. Foal stood silently beside the sleeping Chastel, reflecting on her actions. She expected to be punished, but received only quiet forgiveness. Elsewhere, Neffy ran through the castle halls in panic, calling out for Zagan with urgency as night lingered. She reached him breathlessly and reported the worst: Foal had vanished without a trace. The Holy Knight stood before the Demon Lord's palace, sensing a deep, dangerous power. Her mission was clear: eliminate evil at its source. But memories of Zagan's castle haunted her. It was once her enemy's lair, yet it gave her warmth, a pat on the head, a comforting hug, and oddly kind companions in that place. She had almost forgotten vengeance. The affection she received blurred the hate she once held. She questioned her resolve. Could her vengeance truly be so shallow? Anger surged back. Her father had vanished with the Holy Knight she couldn't forget. She recalled the moment she found her father's lifeless body pierced by a holy sword, while a monstrous man drank his blood. To her, it was clear the Holy Knight had betrayed the wise dragon Orobus, who had only offered guidance and knowledge to humans. As she approached the castle's depths, an unexpected voice interrupted. Someone had followed her. The armored man didn't recognize her. Unaware of the storm her memories had stirred, without hesitation, she launched forward, driven by rage, ready to strike the one she held responsible. Her eyes widened in shock as the knight dropped to his knees, injured by the force of her attack. Despite wielding a holy sword, he was unprepared. Facing Zagan demanded far more than strength alone. Just as she braced for another strike, Zagan appeared and blocked the knight's counterattack with ease. He arrived unexpectedly, backed by allies, turning the tide with calm confidence and precise timing. Torn by guilt, she cried out she had betrayed him, yet he still came to protect her. Zagan's voice cut through her guilt. He reminded her not to worry about the little things, as if her betrayal meant nothing to him. Overwhelmed by his kindness, she lowered her head and finally let the apology escape her lips. Reassured by his presence, she watched as he turned to leave, promising to return once everything was resolved. Facing the Holy Knight again, Zagan made it clear any threat to her would be met with destruction. When questioned, he answered firmly, she wasn't just someone, she was his daughter. The knight paused, his eyes narrowing. Hearing Zagan's words, he acknowledged the bond. That alone was reason enough to fight. Zagan raised his hand, issuing a cold warning. If the knight didn't fight at full strength, death would be certain. Summoning his holy blade, the knight called forth Metatron, declaring he had no intention of dying without resistance. A strange white flame emerged, instantly unraveling Zagan's magic. Shock spread across his face, it was disintegrating before him. The knight revealed the power's origin: flames of purification. Sacred fire said to burn all evil and slay demon lords. From a distance, Nephi questioned Zagan's tactics, wondering why he provoked the knight into unleashing his full power. Zagan responded with a confident smile. Forcing an enemy to go all out only to crush them was a lesson in vengeance, meant to break their spirit completely. The clash resumed, and magic filled the air. The knight charged, but Zagan's reinforced barriers held firm against the holy assault. To the knight's shock, Zagan's magic circle remained intact. It was powered by an ancient legacy crafted to resist even sacred blades, absorbing vast ambient magic. Zagan's barrier defied the purifying flames. Not even holy fire could erase such overwhelming force instantly. The knight staggered backward, breath labored. Zagan stood firm behind a massive glowing barrier, an evolving defense he named Heaven's Scale. Charging with full force, the knight struck again, but Zagan remained unfazed. He marveled at the knight's endurance, noting how most would have collapsed already. A devastating blow crashed into the stone walls, causing the ground to quake. Nephi braced herself as rubble exploded around them. Among the shattered debris, something stirred, eyes gleaming faintly in the darkness, hinting at an ancient power awakening. As the knight lunged again, Zagan countered swiftly, his barrier clashing with raw force, their battle raging without pause. A massive explosion of force rippled through the ground as the two clashed again, their power shaking the battlefield. Zagan calmly assessed the outcome. 3 strikes was the knight's limit. His tone was analytical while the knight stood stunned. With a slight smirk, Zagan noted the performance as satisfactory for a trial. His ally, however, scolded him for planning mid-fight. Unbothered, he retaliated with overwhelming precision, hurling the knight back. His confidence showed he had magic and control to spare. As the purifying flames died out, Zagan revealed his strategy by waiting. He could use alternate magic like the spell that struck him down. As clapping echoed around him, Zagan stood silently. The praise felt strange, yet oddly satisfying in its simplicity. While the battle seemed over, doubts lingered. Zagan questioned whether this was truly the same knight who once slew hundreds of mages. He reflected on the core difference. Holy knights, unlike mages, couldn't recover from fatal wounds. One blow could end everything. Yet the knight rose again, battered but defiant. His strength wasn't just power, it was will. Carved into every scar, Zagan stared in disbelief. Amid the shattered ground stood a man who refused to fall. Inside the quiet room, Nephi knelt silently as dark magical energy seeped across the floor. A new arrival stood frozen in the doorway. Concerned, she asked for Zagan. Nephi explained softly he had left to retrieve Full, facing danger alone. Gripping her sword, the girl hesitated. She felt torn between her duty to stay and her desire to help. The conflict weighed heavily on her. Protected by the very mage once branded an enemy, she questioned her place and the purpose behind her blade. Nephi's voice broke her thoughts. Despite the concern, the girl replied that Zagan had ordered her to stay behind, bound by trust but restless in heart. With quiet honesty, Nephi confessed her feelings. She admitted she was a little jealous, even if it wasn't the right moment to say so. She envied those who could love and be loved freely, those allowed to have meaningful relationships without restraint. Yet the other girl gently countered, her voice trembling. Despite everything, she was the one who felt more envious of Nefertree. To brush it off, but revealed her reason, Nephi could run to Zagan's side without hesitation. However, calmly replied that she couldn't. She had been ordered to stay, and she chose to honor that, even if her heart wavered. Nephi gently declared her role not as a warrior, but as someone who would greet Zagan with a warm welcome home when he returned. She admitted her limits. She couldn't fight alongside him or offer him strength. Yet that didn't stop her from caring deeply. The other girl stood quietly, believing she had no right to ease Zagan's loneliness. That place, she thought, belonged to someone else. The blame for everything didn't rest solely on her. Titles meant little. What mattered was her heart. With tears in her voice, she cried out her truth, not to defeat him, but to stand beside him. That was her true desire. With soft eyes and a knowing smile, Nephi placed her hand gently on the girl's head, reminding her, "You understand, don't you?" She reflected on their first meeting back then. The girl had already sensed Zagan's loneliness. That empathy made Nephi jealous. Still, her heart held no resentment. She was happy, grateful, even that someone else could also see Zagan's true self, looking warmly at her companion. Nephi spoke with pride. The girl had grown strong emotionally and in resolve. Even through uncertainty and fear, she had become someone who could reach Zagan's heart and ease his solitude. Chastel sat in silence, surprised to realize she had been comforted. The tension in her chest slowly eased. She questioned whether she deserved kindness. As someone marked an enemy, she doubted her place among the mages. Nephi reached for her, declaring their bond. Despite differences, what mattered was that they were truly friends, moved by the gesture. Chastel held back tears. Someone saw her not as a threat, but as a companion. Rising to her feet, she made a decision. With gratitude in her heart, she chose to act for herself. With resolve in her eyes, she dashed into the darkness. No longer hesitating, Chastel left to stand beside Zagan. A deadly stillness filled the space as the Holy Knight faced the Dark Mage, both unwavering in their stance. Despite suffering a brutal injury, the knight remained upright, his body seething with pain yet refusing to collapse. Curiosity sparked in the mage's eyes as he studied the knight's resilience, while the demon girl grinned with anticipation of retribution. Rather than flinch, the knight calmly acknowledged the scorn directed at him, sensing the depth of their anger. It was then revealed that he had slain Orobus, the revered dragon, sealing his fate as their sworn enemy. The knight paused as realization struck his opponent was the offspring of the dragon he had slain. Without hesitation, he lunged forward, driven by duty, but Zagan intercepted the attack mid-swing with sheer force. Blows were exchanged rapidly. The knight landed a fierce strike, causing Zagan to stagger in surprise at his strength. Fueled by rage, the demon girl unleashed a powerful spell unwilling to be underestimated or ignored. Magic surged violently across the battlefield, but in the midst of destruction, a calm voice questioned if this conflict should end. A sudden clash erupted as a young woman blocked the knight's blade with precision, her voice filled with urgency. While Zagan and the demon girl reeled in confusion, the newcomer effortlessly halted both sword and spell in a single motion. Instead of fighting, she proposed dialogue, confronting the girl over the tension lingering between them. Kneeling in exhaustion, the knight planted his sword into the ground, silently yielding. Zagan stepped forward, declaring that ending a man already prepared to die offered no satisfaction, choosing restraint over vengeance. As confusion spread, Zagan instructed the girl to stay quiet, noticing the knight's killing intent had faded the moment Orobos was mentioned. From across the battlefield, the swordswoman hesitantly questioned Zagan, trying to confirm what she feared to be true. She recalled a mysterious hooded figure from the past and slowly connected him to the dragon, Orobos. The realization sent a chill through Zagan, leaving him speechless as tension swelled between the group. Before anyone could react, the ground rumbled ominously and Zagan acknowledged the oncoming threat without hesitation. Heavy footsteps echoed ominously as the ground trembled. Something massive approached from within the palace. A towering stone figure emerged from the shadows, its body cracked and radiating unstable power. Dark miasma flooded the area as the monstrous presence advanced, leaving Zagan and the others in alarmed disbelief. Rather than fear, Zagan sensed confusion. It felt familiar, yet lacking the aura was artificial, like a golem mimicking a true demon. Recognition dawned as the demon girl identified it, the palace's gatekeeper. Likely unsealed by the force of clashing holy swords, an eerie transformation gripped the gatekeeper as its mouth split open, revealing monstrous fangs that stunned the knight. Without warning, a surge of bloodlust exploded from the creature. Zagan shouted for everyone to flee as the beast prepared to strike. Foal froze in shock, but the swordswoman dashed forward, desperately trying to shield her. Zagan raced toward the scene, too far to intervene, while Foal's eyes widened in silent terror at the chaos unfolding. In a final act of self-sacrifice, the knight threw himself in front of Foal, shielding her from the deadly blow. He stepped forward, unshaken by the threat, and glared at the approaching creature with cold defiance. Leaping into the air, he summoned powerful magic, vowing to obliterate the monstrous doll before it could harm anyone else. With a thunderous impact, his spell Heaven Scale crashed down, slicing clean through the golem's core. As the dust settled, Zagan rushed to check on Foal, who was wounded but conscious her injuries too close to the heart. Fighting tears, she confronted the knight, reminding him he had once branded her as Orobos's enemy. Foal's voice trembled as she accused the knight of betraying Orobos, convinced she'd witnessed the dragon's desecration. Calmly, the knight denied her claim, revealing that Orobos had willingly lent his strength in battle long ago. That moment was seared into memory. Orobos had honored his plea and granted power to strike down a formidable threat. Zagan named that threat demons, ancient beings spoken of in legends, now resurfacing with terrifying reality. Thou once skeptical himself, the knight admitted the truth. A demon had indeed returned, bringing ruin to dragons and holy knights alike. Ominous silhouettes loomed in a ruined world, a prophecy warning that their return was inevitable. Zagan acknowledged the truth demons were still out there, and he had been searching for a way to destroy them. The knight clarified that Orobas hadn't fallen in defeat, but had given his life in battle to stop a demon. Overwhelmed, Foal questioned her hatred, only to be reminded that Orobas died to protect both her and the world she loved. Her voice cracked with realization. If she couldn't feel proud of that sacrifice, no one else ever would. Facing judgment, the knight offered his life to uphold Orobas's name, declaring the need for unity against the looming threat. He confessed that, to survive and warn others, he drank Orobas's blood, an act born of desperation. Not betrayal. Zagan realized the truth. The knight was the very messenger of the symbiotic faction Chastel had mentioned. Despite his past, the knight admitted he could never lead such a movement, burdened by the blood he'd spilled. Attention turned to Chastel, now recognized as the holy maiden and vital leader in the battle against the demon lords. The knight accepted his fate, stating that if his final act would be a gift of peace for Orobas, he was ready. Before anyone could respond, Chastel turned sharply. Something had caught her attention beyond the battlefield. All around, broken golems began to stir, their bodies twitching and reforming with eerie synchronization. Noting the abundance of immortal threats, but assured her he could handle the situation if it was magical in nature. However, the knight warned it wasn't a simple golem, it was fused with something more dangerous, something unknown and unnatural. Zagan identified the monstrous figure. It was a demon chimera, the creation of Marchosias. He assessed the threat calmly, recognizing that brute force alone wouldn't be enough to defeat it. With magic at the ready and confidence in his stance, Zagan prepared to challenge the creature once more, ready to test its limits. A towering chimera emerges, its body formed from the remnants of a defeated demon. A knight confirms its nature, recognizing the twisted fusion born from Orobas's remains. As panic sets in, a determined mage steps forward. Despite the demon's lesser strength, it remains dangerous. Unexpectedly, a female knight joins him. She doesn't demand trust but asks to fight beside him, sharing the burden of battle. Their bond deepens. She questions his intentions but accepts his response without pressing, showing mutual respect. Gripping her sword, she invokes its power. Unwavering now, she prepares to wield it by her own will. Ready to stand without hesitation, power surged as the sacred sword activated, enveloping the knight in radiant light. Her stance was calm but firm, signaling her resolve. Observers watched in awe as purifying energy gathered around her blade, distinct from previous users of holy flames. Without hesitation, she launched forward, deflecting the chimera's attack. Warnings echoed behind her, but she pushed ahead, armorless and fearless. She led the charge, slicing through the battlefield with precision. Her earlier promise to take the front line was now in motion. The strike landed true. Enemies reeled from the impact, while her allies advanced behind her, protected by her fierce determination. At her signal, Zagan dashed forward, catching the shift in momentum. She urged him to strike while the opening remained. He met the chimera's blow head-on, slipping past its guard with practiced ease. A powerful counter shattered its stone arm. As fragments erupted around him, Zagan calmly hovered in midair, surrounded by debris and dark energy radiating from the broken shell. Realization struck the creature's core. Wasn't its body, but the black haze. Destroying the shell alone wouldn't end it. Before he could falter, her voice cut through. Reminded of their shared resolve, Zagan reignited his strength for the next assault. Zagan advanced through the crumbling battlefield, bits of stone flying past him. His smirk returned as he reflected on how strong she had become. Leaping high, he landed a blow directly on the chimera's core. Magic symbols flared as he activated his ultimate spell, Heaven Blaze. To their surprise, the attack didn't trigger immediately. Confusion flashed on her face, but Zagan remained calm. A moment later, the black haze erupted, signaling the true destruction of the chimera's form. His hand lowered in finality. The battlefield fell silent. She approached, stunned, asking what exactly he had done to end it so decisively. Zagan explained the mechanism behind the victory. He used a spell called Heaven Scale, which absorbs mana as a defensive shield but inverted it. By releasing the inverted version inside the chimera, it began consuming mana uncontrollably. The combination of Heaven Scale and Heaven Blaze, two opposites, born from one principle, created a lethal contradiction that overpowered the chimera's core. Despite the win, Zagan admitted the technique lacked precision. Without refining it, the spell wouldn't reliably work against more powerful demons. Impressed by his magic, praised him. Zagan deflected modestly, pointing out her own growth. The tension eased into a rare, light-hearted moment. Chastel was caught off guard when Zagan apologized and used her name for the first time. It was a small moment, but one that mattered. He acknowledged her not just as Nephi's friend, but as a fellow warrior. She stood firm, declaring she came to fight by his side. Despite their titles, Mage and Holy Knight both smiled, knowing their bond had deepened beyond labels. Together, they faced forward. The battle was over, but something lasting had been forged. Nearby, wounded allies lay on the ground. Zagan hurried to help, his resolve unchanged, even as healing wasn't his strength. Zagan revealed that Chastel's actions had earned her the trust of those who would now follow her lead. Whether she intended it or not, she had become a symbol. Chastel questioned the wounded knight, realizing he had used the name of Orobus because his own lacked recognition. He admitted it, the creation of the symbiotic faction and his survival were all part of Orobas's dying wish, making the name fitting for their cause. Still, Zagan asked the hard question, why had the knight killed mages to begin with? The man responded bluntly, the mages had attacked first. He only returned the violence they brought. Shock filled the air as an unexpected figure made his entrance, disrupting the moment of calm the group had just reached. While recalling his past, the bloodied knight explained he simply smiled at the mages trying to talk, but they had reacted with aggression. No one could hide their disbelief. Zagan began to process the irony, realizing the so-called peace talks had ended in bloodshed. Trying to justify himself, the man insisted his actions were only to protect, not provoke, even recalling a tense tavern warning. Chastel countered with fire, pointing out the contradiction between his words and the brutal path he had chosen instead. The injured knight, filled with pride, recalled why he trusted her because she once said death count wasn't something to boast about. Confusion turned to frustration as Zagan snapped, pointing out how threatening the man looked when trying to justify himself with that face. Permission was granted for Chastel to return to the church. He offered to handle the traitor who had tried to dispose of her. Despite his wounds, he promised to surrender himself once he fulfilled his final duty protecting Orobas's daughter. Curiosity lingered. She asked quietly what kind of dragon had Orobas truly been to him. Memories of riding atop Orobas during battle stirred something deep. That time, filled with purpose and trust, remained the proudest moment of his life. Steps echoed as the knight walked toward the tunnel, quietly surrendering to fate. Uncertainty weighed heavily, doubt replaced vengeance, and she questioned whether executing him was truly the right answer anymore. A gentle pat broke the silence. No judgment followed, just acceptance of her conflicted heart. They turned together. Zagan reached out, reminding her of what mattered. She grasped his hand firmly, ready to return home where Nephi waited. Uncertainty lingered in her heart. Revenge still whispered, but new bonds and conflicting emotions began to soften her path. Through the gates of home, a familiar voice welcomed them back. Nephi smiled, her presence warm and comforting. Smiles returned. Chastel walked beside them, no longer burdened by isolation. Peace, however fragile, had taken root. Leaves drifted in the evening light. Zagan and Nephi had made a quiet decision they would remain by Chastel's side. Elsewhere, the church searched in vain. Her absence, for now, marked the beginning of something far removed from their reach. A calm exterior masked inner unrest. Though the bishop assured the guards they weren't at fault, guilt still weighed heavily. Left alone, trembling hands reached for the table. Whispered words of frustration escaped his lips, a plea to the knight who defied him. Rage erupted. To him, mages were evil, and any holy knight touched by them was tainted. Justice demanded purity. Other cardinals stopped the execution, but bitterness lingered. She was supposed to die, yet escaped, sword in hand. Disbelief consumed him. Why did unworthy wielders of holy swords keep being chosen? While his ideals were left behind, determination filled the knight's heart. If Chastel died, the holy sword would pass on again, and this time he swore to guide its next bearer into a true symbol of justice. Raphael, bloodied and imposing, entered Clavel's chamber unannounced. Shock spread across the bishop's face at the sight of his wounds. Dismissing the concern, Raphael claimed he was only there to handle unfinished business. For Clavel, it felt like opportunity knocking. Suspicions deepened. A poison was prepared, judgment reserved for one considered another, growing evil within the church. Words faltered. As Clavel reached out to heal, unease gripped him. Something darker was clearly unfolding. A single motion ended the farce. The bishop's hand fell, severed cleanly. No mercy was given. Poison had been his answer. And judgment followed. Screams echoed as blood spilled. Raphael stood tall, unmoved. This was the first man he chose to kill, and strangely, he felt nervous. Wounds deepened, but words came steady. Age had caught up to them both. Their time had passed. The new generation had risen. Desperation gripped the fallen man. He ranted of betrayal, of divine right, of being overtaken by so-called evil. Steel glinted above. Raphael offered a grim farewell, death by the sword he loved. A final blow fell. Bloodied but composed, he stood over the fallen body, promising to follow soon. Regret and resolve mingled in his eyes. A silent room bore witness as he whispered farewell. His path was clear. He would descend next into the underworld. With a calm expression, she processed the unsettling truth Cardinal Clavel had been the one behind it all. Doubt had lingered in her mind, but the confirmation struck harder than expected. Once, he had stood as a symbol of the church's righteousness. Her companion didn't soften his words. While she admitted the institution had strayed, she still hoped for small changes rather than complete upheaval. A quiet determination lit her eyes as she resolved to return not in blind faith, but with purpose to influence change. He watched her decision unfold in silence, recognizing a conviction that words couldn't shake. Suddenly, he announced the tea was poisoned. She leapt up in shock, nearly spilling the cup from her hand. Irritated, she scolded him for the prank, especially since the tea had been carefully brewed by Neffy. Before she could calm down, a small figure entered the room. The girl's presence brought an unexpected silence. With a bittersweet smile, she admitted they had never truly spoken heart to heart. The moment felt long overdue. Without turning back, she walked to the door. A quiet farewell followed simple. A quiet voice called out, asking her to return. The name Chastel echoed softly, stopping her steps. Tears welled in her eyes as she turned around. For the first time, someone had spoken her name with sincerity. With renewed spirit, she expressed her gratitude. Though uncertain of the future, she vowed to make the world kinder for all. Memories surfaced, and with a gentle smile, she affirmed that this path aligned with his unspoken hopes. Surrounded by support, Chastel stood proud. Her decision made, she was finally ready to move forward with strength. A sudden, thunderous noise erupted outside the castle, shaking its walls with tension and surprise. Questioned Raphael's condition, but the man stood firm, protected by magic and stubbornness. Despite not feeling his arm, Chastel stared in disbelief. Just moments ago, she had thought Raphael was dead. Now, he casually chatted as if nothing happened. The old knight admitted to brewing the tea and once killing Zagan to deal with Clavel. Laughter and disbelief followed. Raphael scolded Zagan, bluntly dismissing pity. To him, betrayal wasn't tragic, it was a lesson for the naive. Zagan warned of betrayal's danger. Raphael agreed, addressing Zagan as my liege, leaving Chastel stunned by the revelation. With a solemn declaration, Raphael announced his retirement as Holy Knight Captain to serve as Lord Zagan's butler. The next morning, Zagan sensed Raphael waiting outside, exhausted but resolute, offering his life as promised. Instead of punishment, Foal asked him to devote his strength to Zagan and Neffy, revealing the trust placed in him. From that day, Raphael began his duties at the castle, advancing vital research and standing as a steadfast ally. Zagan reflected grimly on how chaotic his life might have been without Neffy. Hiring others was never an option for him. Meanwhile, Neffy approached Raphael with concern, asking if living with one arm was difficult. His pride waved it off. Surprised, he received a gift armor from Neffy's past. It fit perfectly, responsive and strong, reviving motion in his missing limb. Awed and humbled, Raphael pledged his loyalty once more, realizing he owed both father and daughter more than he imagined. As everyone settled into their roles, Chastel blinked in disbelief, realizing she was the only one still departing. Warm words offered reassurance she could return any time. Tears flowed freely, touched by the kindness she didn't expect. A hesitant glance sought clarity. Her question hung in the air, but someone else answered with calm certainty. Quiet admission followed. Sharing a drink once in a while didn't seem like such a bad idea after all. A wide smile lit up her face. One last wave, then footsteps carried her forward, heart lighter than before, from behind. A muttered complaint broke the silence. Arms crossed, he watched her leave, expression betraying more than words ever could. Uncertainty lingered between them. One question broke the silence: was there anger hidden in that calm? No clear answer came. A whispered challenge urged him to guess, while emotions swirled just beneath the surface. A gentle touch bridged the gap. An apology followed, raw and sincere regret for walking ahead and leaving her behind. Tenderness filled the space as laughter rang out. Small hands shielded young eyes, timing not yet right for such closeness. Far away, shadows watched through enchanted glass. Smiles reflected in the mirror stirred something darker, colder patience biding its time. A cloaked figure vanished into the corridor, name whispered in contempt: Neferia. The cursed shadows stirred, the threat now awakened. Zagan, Neffy, and Fall strolled through the market, drawn in by the lively atmosphere and sweet-smelling treats. Fall begged for candies, but Neffy reminded her it was nearly dinner. They stopped at a spice stand where friendly vendors shared ingredients and greetings. Neffy accepted their kindness with gratitude. As they turned to leave, a sudden magical strike surged toward Neffy. Fall, alert and quick, leaped to push her out of harm's way. The attack landed with force. Neffy held Fall close, shocked. They realized it had been a magical ambush. From the cracked street ahead, a hooded figure emerged. Recognition dawned in the cloaked figure's voice. Neffy stood frozen, her identity confirmed without a word. With a cold glare, the enemy cast a deadly spell. The air grew thick with dark intent. Foal lunged to protect Neffy, determined to intercept the attack. Neffy, shaken, tried to hold her back. A violent explosion tore through the street. Cries echoed as townspeople scattered. Neffy cried out, trying to shield Foal. Amid the swirling debris, Neffy faced the attacker head-on. The enemy hesitated, surprised by her resolve. Memories of kind faces flashed through Neffy's mind as anger welled up. Her fists clenched, eyes burning. With fierce resolve, she seized control of the chaotic magic, halting the assault mid-air. Foal looked on in awe, raising her hand. Neffy launched a counterattack, shards of crystal binding the fleeing enemy. Escape was no longer an option, but the enemy retaliated with brute force, shattering the prison and striking Neffy hard. The clash exploded with blinding light. Smoke cleared. Though wounded, the cloaked figure sneered, acknowledging Neffy's strength as a high elf despite calling her useless. Shock filled Neffy and Foal's faces as an unexpected figure emerged from the dust. A powerful elven woman stood confidently, cloak swirling and aura intense. Her presence silenced the chaos. Neffy stared in disbelief. The woman's face resembled her own. Foal too noticed the uncanny similarity. With measured calm, the stranger commented on the immense magical force the Demon Lord's magic circle had been activated. The ground pulsed as a vast symbol spread outward. Around them, townspeople slowly recovered, dazed by the magical shock that had rippled through the city. Neffy stepped forward, surprised the barrier around her had vanished. She tried to question the mysterious figure. The woman claimed to be a version of Neffy cursed. Before any response, she vanished into the light. Back in town, the villagers gathered. The area once in ruins appeared restored. Everyone looked to Neffy in confusion. Among the wreckage, a letter addressed to Zagan appeared. It was from another Demon Lord Bifrons. A man summoned a glowing blade Metatron, its brilliance cutting through the air with power and purpose. As the sword activated, complex symbols glowed around the wielder. The observer realized the energy didn't stem from the blade, but the engraved letters. In a library, research continued. Books from Marchosia's legacy revealed that the symbols came from an ancient system, the Celestian language. The language, once used by divine beings, had lost its meaning over time. Not even the church could decipher it. Despite efforts, its structure defied magical logic. Understanding the sword's true nature remained beyond reach. Zagan examined the sword, suggesting it might behave more like a living being than a weapon. The older man confirmed it, revealing the sword seemed to choose its wielder, sometimes showing signs of will. They speculated it may have once been a living creature transformed into a blade retaining consciousness. Rather than dissect the sword itself, Zagan proposed tracing its origins, hoping to uncover its creator. With determination, Zagan revealed his goals: find a way to kill demons and discover how to destroy the Demon Lord's sigil. Zagan recognized that without destroying the Demon Lord's sigil, defeating others like him would be impossible. Granting Neffy a peaceful life meant eliminating every threat. His thoughts drifted toward the sacred sword's markings. If he could decipher the shared roots with the sigil, answers might emerge, but clarity eluded him. A sudden alert interrupted his reflection. Keanode's barrier had triggered. Something had gone wrong. Neffy and Foal might be in danger. He rushed through the halls, eventually finding them at the entrance. Safe but shaken, worried, he asked what had happened, fearing the worst. Eyes cast downward, Neffy stood in silence while Foal held her hand protectively. A soft reply escaped. Nothing had happened. Concern filled the air as Zagan knelt beside Foal and asked if she was all right. She nodded slightly, then left with Raphael for juice. Speech faltered. Words stuck in his throat as he watched them walk away, unsure how to begin. Silence lingered. Only her voice broke it, apologizing, gripping her dress tightly. No one else could hear. Anger simmered beneath calm eyes. Whoever made her feel this way would face his wrath. Until then, quiet support was all he could offer. Thoughts raced wildly, recalling how she once comforted him. He panicked over how to return the gesture with a lap pillow now. An idea sparked. All he had to do was find a suitable spot somewhere private enough to act without hesitation. Without warning, she was swept off her feet, carried through the hall, flustered and speechless. She clung to him. They reached a quiet room. She remained in his arms, unsure, while the door closed firmly behind them. Despite good intentions, the setting felt too formal. Offering a lap pillow here wasn't going to be easy. Confusion spread between them. Neffy whispered in doubt, unsure of what was happening. No answers came, just shared bewilderment. Time passed quietly. Guilt lingered as both reflected on mistakes, While waiting for dinner, reading side by side brought small comfort. A mysterious envelope surfaced. Its seal carried unfamiliar markings handed over by someone in Keanoides. Inside the letter lay an invitation to a formal evening ball. Several names were listed, including all castle residents Nefi, Raphael, even Chastille. Upon reading the sender's name, a chill followed. By Franz. Recognition dawned. He was the one who had dared harm Nefi before. Nefi asked quietly if he planned to attend the ball. The sender knew far too much. It meant they'd been under watch for a while. Crushing that demon lord would be inevitable. Accepting the invitation was a chance to gauge their power difference. Her fear didn't go unnoticed. She had just endured a traumatic event. Comforting her wasn't simple, but an idea sparked. Instinct took over. He pulled her close, holding tightly, hoping warmth could replace words. Flapping ears, flushed faces, and instant regret followed. That approach definitely needed refinement. Seeing her expression filled with sorrow, he swore to strike down anyone who made her suffer, even a fellow demon lord from behind. She spoke softly somehow. He had understood her feelings without needing an explanation. Apologies followed. She still didn't know how to put things into words. He simply told her to speak when ready. A grateful smile appeared as she asked to be set down, clearly flustered but more at peace. With time to spare before dinner, they returned to reading. Her gaze lingered on the sword's name, Metatron. Surprise lit his face. Nefi admitted she could read the sacred sword's letters. Though their meaning remained unclear, staring at the script, he wondered if the language was tied to elves or another ancient race. This could be a vital lead. News of the demon lord's invitation spread fast. The odd merchant reacted with shock at the mention of a formal ball. Ivrion gathered for tea. Suspicion was high. Most believed the event was a trap, with a high chance of danger. Barbaros got mocked. His frustration exploded, while others teased with playful sarcasm and mild truths. Tempers flared during the gathering. Accusations flew as Chastille and Barbaros clashed over insults and snack etiquette, escalating tension with every word. With the room barely settled, Barbaros revealed why he came. Nefi had been attacked by a sorcerer in Keanoides just the day before. Startled by the statement, Nefi hesitated, and Barbaros offered his information, suggesting it might be useful. Zagan's tone shifted. If the intel held value, he was willing to reward generously. Barbaros leaned in, intrigued. Before words could continue, Chastille's rage burst forth, magic flaring at the sight of Barbaros's smug face. She reached for his arm, quiet and hesitant. That gesture mirrored yesterday. Maybe she didn't want him to hear the truth directly again. A question followed. Could he really read minds? He didn't answer clearly. Still, she promised to wait patiently until Nefi chose to speak. Decision made, he turned to Barbaros. Whatever the sorcerer had to offer, it wasn't needed, at least not now. Barbaros warned against ignoring the threat. His words went unanswered, doubt lingered. But pride held firm. Tension exploded again. Jabs flew from every side, laced with sparks and sarcasm, ending, as always, in reluctant laughter. Foal's cheerful demeanor caught everyone off guard. Nefi looked flustered, questioning what had changed, while Zagan calmly munched on a sweet thou he'd felt unsure the day before. Her happiness made him wonder if his efforts had actually helped. Foal jumped off his lap with a flourish, claiming it was time Nefi took her rightful place again. Not that she cared. Of course. Nefi quietly sat, clearly unsettled. His casual behavior left her speechless, while the others watched in surprise. Reflecting on the upcoming ball, Zagan accepted the need to prepare. Ignoring it now wasn't an option anymore. Annoyance filled the air as Foal demanded to know how long she was expected to babysit Chastille. A glance toward Nefi brought no answer. Barbaros, lounging confidently, realized it had already been a month since the poisoning incident, but no one had ever defined an end point. No time limit had been mentioned. Zagan's smug reply sent Barbaros into frustrated disbelief. Muttering about scams, curiosity shifted to irritation. Barbaros questioned why Chastille had even been invited in the first place. Zagan's answer was simple. Everyone tied to him was. Disappointment hit. Barbaros hadn't been invited at all. His dramatic reaction was met with indifference. Frustrated and dramatic as ever, Barbaros buried his head on the table. Groans filled the room. Everyone else looked unimpressed. His latest suggestion, offer to guard the castle. Suspicion rose immediately. No one trusted his motives. Accusations flew. Chastille was sure he planned to rob them blind. Zagan clarified any theft would trigger harsh punishment. No exceptions. Confirmation sparked outrage. Barbaros had nearly died last time trying to steal a grimoire, only barely escaping demon dogs. Calm Foal, Zagan assured her the summoned beasts wouldn't harm her or Raphael. He'd planned for their safety all along. Praise from Foal left Zagan composed, but Barbaros fumed. Mastering magic wasn't that easy. He argued it set Zagan apart unfairly. Despite the snide remarks, Zagan stood firm. As a demon lord, he'd never let his sorcery harm Nephi. That much was non-negotiable. Barbaros turned serious for once, asking if leaving things unspoken was truly okay. The question struck harder than expected. A quiet nod from Nephi was enough. Without another word, Barbaros vanished, irritated but somehow satisfied. Watching him go, Nephi smiled gently. Maybe he wasn't so bad. Zagan, however, remained unconvinced about their so-called friendship. Zagan reflected on the demon lord's invitation. The looming ball suggested hidden motives. A quiet city awaited what came next. A mysterious figure lingered in Nephi's thoughts, a woman who looked just like her, but whose identity remained unknown. Nephi stood before the mirror, haunted by the reflection of a white-haired woman with the same face, same eyes, but filled with hatred. Distracted and uneasy, she fumbled during preparations. Concerned, her companion gently brought her back to the moment. The resemblance couldn't be ignored. Nephi was clearly disturbed by memories of the mage who shared her appearance and aura. Yet fear lingered, fear of the immense and dangerous power that woman possessed. She recalled the ominous power, unlike ordinary magic, raw and destructive, echoing unnatural sorcery. Somehow, she had grasped the meaning behind the chant and gained control over the technique, turning it against its user. The realization that they shared a deep connection unsettled her. She didn't want to resemble that dangerous figure. Doubts crept in if she were to change, to become consumed by hatred and use that fearsome strength. Would Zagan still care for her? Despite believing in his love, she knew relying on him alone wasn't enough. She had to remain true to herself. Nephi was embraced warmly, reassured that she had someone to lean on whenever doubt clouded her heart. Despite that comfort, she struggled with guilt, fearing she might become a burden if she depended too much on others. Her companion gently corrected her, distinguishing between being a parasite and simply trusting someone for strength. That simple word, relying, settled between them, prompting Nephi to reconsider her view on support and connection. Faced with the question of Zagan's pain, she found resolve, ready to bear his burdens and stand beside him without hesitation. A single word echoed in Nephi's mind, relying, something she had long distanced herself from. Memories of isolation resurfaced. Rejection had taught her to stand alone, never expecting warmth from others. But with Zagan, things were different. Moving forward together wasn't weakness. It was strength born from mutual trust. Manuela's gentle words reminded her that being depended on was also a gift, not a burden to avoid. A spark of courage stirred within Nephi. For the first time, she resolved to speak from the heart and face Zagan with honesty. With flair and confidence, Manuela offered her emotional support and unsolicited lingerie advice. A gentle smile formed as Nephi politely refused, appreciating the gesture but setting her own boundaries. Their journey soon brought them across Suffragetta, the continent's largest lake, vast and mesmerizing. Waves rocked the boat gently, exciting the child on deck, who marveled at the movement and fun of sailing. Perched atop a barrel, she beamed with delight, answering the question with a simple word that said everything. Joy radiated from her eyes. Nephi stood in an elegant dress, quiet and reserved, while a little girl proudly showed her off. Zagan, flustered, admitted it suited her perfectly. Though unsure earlier, her calm expression now revealed a sense of ease as they sailed under the sky. Valifor, fully armored, confirmed he was more comfortable than before, finding this new set even more practical than the old. With Raphael's identity too exposed, the group decided to disguise him using borrowed armor from a trusted ally. Credit for this clever transformation went to Nephi, her quiet efforts once again proving vital to their success. Ancient markings engraved on the armor sparked curiosity. Nephi could read them even if the words were unfamiliar. Replicating those inscriptions became the plan, aiming to restore the armor's original power through careful reconstruction. Though the script wasn't from her homeland, she recalled seeing it somewhere long ago. Understanding it remained limited. The true creator of those writings remained unknown. But the theory pointed to someone close to the church, perhaps another elf. Despite partial success, the reproduced equipment still lacked the power of genuine holy swords, something Nephi admitted she couldn't yet achieve. Although the demon lord's seal resembled celestial script, its meaning remained unclear. Some connection might exist, but not a direct one. Despite lingering mysteries, their efforts yielded progress, confidence grew, and future collaboration was welcomed warmly. Before plans could continue, Chastel entered with sharp timing, cutting through their discussion. Inside the grand hall, tables were set for an evening party, an unexpected yet extravagant venue aboard the ship. Beneath the surface, odd whispers filled the air. Strange melodies echoed, masking private conversations with a deliberately eerie tone. A siren sang beside skeletal musicians, familiar spirits summoned to create an eerie atmosphere for the event. Confusion lingered as the nature of the gathering remained vague, leaving guests uncertain about expectations. Aunts clarified as a trading event for magicians. Shock took over, some had prepared for a ball, not a professional meetup. Chastel, flustered, revealed she chose her outfit thinking it was a formal evening party. Compliments poured in despite the misunderstanding. When told to leave weapons behind, she protested, insisting that dancing as a knight required the proper dignity. Even if impractical, tension rippled through the crowd as hooded guests exchanged uneasy glances, murmuring suspicions. All eyes turned to the lone girl standing exposed, recognized instantly. As the only female holy knight of her order, mistrust grew. Whispers hinted at hostility, some even questioning if she should be eliminated on the spot rather than leave her vulnerable. Zagan stepped in, brushing off the drama and leading her away. He cut through the middle of the ballroom without hesitation. Shocked, she followed, caught between boldness and disbelief at his forward march. As eerie music filled the hall, guests turned to witness Zagan enter, his aura commanding attention. Whispers quickly spread the new demon lord. Behind him stood the armored figure once thought dead. His allegiance to Zagan was now fact, not rumor. Observations continued. Horns revealed the presence of a dragon, rumored to have been won through a fierce battle with a mage hunter. Eyes shifted to the white-haired elf at Zagan's side, his bride, whose strength quietly unsettled many. Tales of punishment for harming her grew more extreme by the second, feeding her reputation through embellished fear. Speculation stirred again. Rumors now claimed Zagan had subdued the holy maiden. Neither confirmed nor denied, he brushed it off with indifference. Whispers turned sharper. Her appearance drew judgment and risky conclusions. Without warning, she was pulled to safety. Chaos briefly followed, ending with a slap and stern silence that quieted further assumptions. Frozen in an awkward pose, she panicked, attempting a clumsy excuse for her sudden grip on him. A quiet voice, soft yet menacing, offered help. Her smile sent chills, making it clear who held the upper hand. No one dared speak further. Zagan's reaction caught them all off guard. Even Neffy and Chastel froze, shocked by whatever just unfolded, amused. He quietly enjoyed seeing an unfamiliar side of Neffy, a moment that left him unexpectedly content. With his companions at his side, Zagan stepped forward, ready to address the crowd and take his place on the stage. All eyes turned as he introduced himself. Zagan, last of the demon lords. Silence followed his words, then a smirk. The host was absent, but he had no intention of letting the night pass without stirring things up. The crowd raised their glasses in recognition, acknowledging Zagan's presence. Surrounded by his allies, he stood firm, quietly observing the gathered magicians. As the ship sailed onward, the moment settled. Their journey and the tension behind it would soon continue. Zagan remained calm on the ship, confident no one would challenge him. He warned that if everyone acted with care, they'd remain safe. Tension rose when a guest broke into tears. Another scolded her for being overly emotional in dangerous situations, acknowledging her clumsiness. A casual conversation began. Neffy admitted it was her first time aboard, having grown up in the mountains. Zagan claimed he had technically experienced it before. He recalled his youth accidentally getting trapped inside a cargo crate while stealing food, nearly suffocating before being discovered. Neffy empathized, revealing her own past, once nearly freezing in a food cellar while sneaking honey to survive. Zagan demanded the identity of Neffy's tormentor, vowing dark revenge even if it meant resurrecting the dead. She, however, declined, thankful yet unwilling to escalate. Kindness softened the mood. Memories of past hardship were shared as they acknowledged the sweetness of stolen food over bitterness. Curiosity shifted the topic. One of the guests questioned the outcome of a troubling event involving the church's teachings. Details emerged. A cardinal's death had been labeled accidental, yet deeper forces seemed aware of the truth. Though involved, the symbiotic faction remained silent, their goals aligned with peace, preferring mages be left undisturbed. Zagan remarked that things would remain stable as long as harmony was kept. Poisoning or suffering, he claimed, deserved only limited sympathy. Surprised by his concern, Chastel questioned whether he truly worried for her. His awkward response sparked confusion, and he silently regretted his words. Brushing aside others' opinions, Zagan focused only on what mattered: his bond with Neffy. Distractions held no importance to him. Chastel gathered her resolve. She acknowledged her strength and refused to be a burden, urging Zagan to pursue his duties. With quiet determination, she expressed her wish to become someone worthy of trust and support. She expressed her desire to return the kindness she had received, hoping for a mutual bond rooted in trust and cooperation. Though unfamiliar with relying on others, Zagan admitted the idea was foreign after years of solitude. Neffy's presence beside him revealed a quiet trust had already formed between them without acknowledgement. Memories resurfaced. Gradually, he recognized support not just from Neffy but from others who stood by him through trials. Her quiet reflection on the word rely hinted at unspoken emotions, just as another voice hesitantly called his attention. With determination, Neffy stepped forward, ready to speak her mind, but an unexpected noise cut through the moment. A sudden crash near the ship's cargo area drew everyone's attention. Instinctively, they turned toward the sound. Suspicion rose as the noise repeated. Despite doubts, concern formed. Perhaps someone or something was trapped. A childhood memory flashed. Zagan once got stuck inside a cargo crate while stealing food. Chastel gasped in realization. Chaos followed. Assuming the worst, the group rushed to act. A powerful shove burst the crate open, revealing the unexpected. A young girl tumbled out from the crate, gasping for breath, surrounded by scattered fruit. Relief washed over her flushed face. Grateful but shaken, she thanked everyone profusely. Neffy momentarily interrupted, set aside her thoughts as concern shifted to the rescued girl. Startled by the attention, the girl apologized, fearing she had disrupted something important. Others rushed to check for injuries, but she insisted she was fine. Questions followed. Neffy offered help, gently asking why she was inside the cargo in the first place. Introducing herself as Nero, the girl explained her status: a novice sorcerer still learning, but eager to help. A sudden explosion of light erupted. Nero's attempt at magic failed spectacularly, leaving her dazed and embarrassed. Apologies followed quickly. Despite her efforts, she admitted no spell had ever worked, not even after a full year of trying. Without hesitation, she dropped to her knees, begging the demon lord to take her in as a disciple. Smuggling herself aboard had been no accident. The plea continued, sincere and desperate. She knew it was reckless, but saw no other option. Watching quietly, Zagan sensed nothing. No mana, no talent, just resolve burning inside a powerless girl. After a pause, he declined. Despite understanding her feelings, Zagan claimed he had no time for disciples. Desperation took over. Nero pleaded in every way imaginable, offering labor, errands, even humiliation just for a chance. Neffy hesitated, suggesting they hear Nero out, but Zagan remained firm, dismissing the request with little thought. A whisper crept in. A shadowed figure mocked Neffy's compassion, labeling her as soft-hearted with a chilling grin. From above, the stranger warned her not to trust sorcerers. Cloaked in mystery, they called all mages liars, then locked eyes with Zagan. Darkness descended as Gremory appeared, declaring herself a former demon lord candidate, scythe in hand and eyes sharp with intent. Feigning politeness, she mocked the group under a veil of curiosity. Zagan quickly stepped in, questioning her intentions toward Chastel. Sarcasm flew between them. He redirected her attention, dismissing holy knights with disdain. Gremory responded with veiled insults and growing hostility. A new threat emerged. The towering figure of a Whirlian loomed over them, recognized from a past auction. His identity became clear: Chimaris, the Black Blade. His presence turned tension into imminent danger. Chimaris bowed mid-air, apologizing on Gremory's behalf. Beneath her harsh words, he insisted she meant no harm. Old ties were revealed. Gremory squirmed while Chimaris pleaded for forgiveness, citing worry over the vulnerable children aboard. His honest confession surprised everyone. Despite his fearsome look, he admitted to leaning on Gremory's strength for quite some time. Things grew awkward. Gremory denied ever confessing, while Chimaris declared his love for animals as the reason for his loyalty. Watching them bicker, Zagan couldn't help but wonder, could the world be calmer if these two truly became demon lords? Chimaris offered a warning, advising Zagan to stay cautious. His kindness, though rare in their world, could be exploited by others. He challenged the idea, stating that kindness didn't belong to demon lords. Chimaris countered gently, affection itself defined that very trait. Pointing to the group, Chimaris called out Zagan's protective feelings toward his companions, equating them to the emotion he denied. Embarrassed, Zagan tried to hide his reaction. He hadn't expected such sincere honesty, especially in public. After a pause, he nodded in acceptance, quietly thanking Chimaris for the heartfelt warning. Chastel noted that Chimaris might have come to protect Gremory, proving there were still decent mages in the world. Zagan reflected on his own belief that mages, unable to live normally, would all eventually become corrupted like him. Yet witnessing Chimaris' actions, he realized not all lost their humanity with time. High above, a mysterious woman observed everything. With all pieces in place, she prepared to begin her true scheme. Under the full moon, Zagan quietly recalled the night he encountered Neffy for the first time. He gestured to the vacant seat beside him, now that the hall had cleared of others, though hesitant at first. Nefi moved to sit when he mentioned offering the spot to someone else. Chastel approached and asked to act at her own discretion, receiving Zagan's casual approval. Attempting to stay close, she was promptly reminded to read the atmosphere, an important lesson for avoiding unnecessary risks. Amused by the irony, Nefi watched as Zagan was teased for lecturing about social awareness. Instead of replying smoothly, he awkwardly offered her a seat beside him with a subtle pat. Surrounded by guests, Nefi admitted her discomfort, finding the situation too embarrassing to accept easily. Quietly, she opened up, expressing how his recent behavior had felt unusually cold toward her. With her eyes cast down, she whispered that his actions felt unfair, stirring quiet tension in the air. Zagan reached toward Nefi's ear out of curiosity, startling her with the sudden touch, rather than resist. She softly gave him permission, her expression calm yet uncertain. He hesitated, surprised by her response, but she confirmed her consent with a gentle nod. As his fingers brushed her ear, he noticed how its texture changed subtly with her emotions. Realizing the intimacy of the moment, Zagan blushed with guilt, overwhelmed by the thought that his innocent action might be far more improper than intended. Zagan panicked as Nefi reacted strongly to his touch, worried he had hurt her by accident. A heavy silence fell between them, both too flustered to speak clearly. From the balcony, they suddenly realized the entire room below was watching. Every guest, from warriors to mages, stared with wide eyes, shocked by the intimate scene. Embarrassed, the pair leapt away from the railing, and Nefi softly murmured a request to try again. Next time, when no one else was around, Zagan was left in disbelief, wondering if Nefi's reaction meant she might allow him to touch her ears again. A maid approached, commenting on their relationship and offering to serve, but Zagan coldly dismissed her, uninterested in her flattery. Across the room, Nefi quietly reflected on her own place by Zagan's side. Breaking the silence, she stepped forward and told Zagan she had something important to share. Recounting an earlier event, Nefi revealed she had been attacked in Keanodes by a powerful mage whose origins were unclear. Nefi recalled the attacker with a chill, her memory of the encounter still vivid and unsettling. Suddenly, a powerful gust and thick fog swept across the ship, throwing everything into disarray. Confusion spread quickly as the dense mist blinded everyone. Nefi tried to call out to Zagan, only to find her voice silenced. Panic settled in as she realized her body wouldn't respond either. Across from her, Nero approached unaffected, raising even more questions. Strangely immune to the restraints, Nero pledged to protect her. Nefi, recognizing the mysterious figure from her memory, relief washed over Nefi as she saw Zagan again, certain he was safe and unharmed. But the scene quickly shifted. Zagan stood confused as another figure identical to Nefi knelt before him. Shock spread among the group, to their disbelief. Two versions of Nefi stood apart, both seemingly real. Nero tried calling out, but found his words useless. A barrier prevented both voice and sight from reaching Zagan's side. The true Nefi watched the copy cling to Zagan, then suddenly realized with certainty it was her, the same enemy. Seeing the imposter embrace Zagan so naturally, Nefi felt a sting. She had shared such closeness before. Zagan instinctively pulled Nefi back, aware that something was wrong. The situation wasn't just strange, it was hostile. From a distance, Nero pieced things together. If Zagan accepted the copy as genuine, what did that make the Nefi still restrained nearby? Paralyzed and helpless, the real Nefi silently screamed. Though she wanted to cry out, her lips wouldn't move. As the fake leaned in, asking for comfort, Nefi's inner voice erupted in pain, pleading for the illusion to stop before it stole any more of her identity. Zagan abruptly grabbed the imposter's face, glaring into her eyes with suspicion. The warmth was missing. This wasn't Nefi. Holding her at arm's length, he declared her behavior far too familiar for someone he'd supposedly just met. The revelation sent ripples through the group. The real Nefi and her companions watched in disbelief as the illusion began to unravel. With her disguise falling apart, the enemy revealed her true form, stunned that her deception had failed. Zagan remained unmoved, demanding an explanation. Then, his voice rang sharp and clear, accusing her directly of impersonating Nefi. Her reaction made it obvious he had struck the truth. The imposter's frustration boiled over. Her disguise had failed, and Zagan's scornful words made it clear he had seen through everything. With a burst of magic, he shattered the illusion, demanding the true enemy reveal themselves. As the spell broke, chaos erupted. The ship's decks split apart, bodies thrown back, and cries filled the air. The fake screamed in desperation. Her act fully exposed, wooden beams cracked and sails tore as the vessel broke apart under the force of released energy. In the aftermath, Zagan carried Nefi to safety, leaving behind the wreckage and deception that had threatened to tear them apart. Zagan gently asked if Nefi was all right, sensing her distress. She trembled, barely able to respond through the wave of emotion. Tears welled in her eyes, not from fear, but from relief. He had recognized her. That alone meant everything. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure observed from afar, remarking on Zagan's unflinching resolve. The title Demon Lord seemed fitting. Among the masked guests, a cloaked culprit admitted surprise. Their confidence in the deception had been shattered, and now they could only ask when Zagan had figured it out. Calmly, Zagan revealed the flaw. No low magic intruder could breach a Demon Lord's high-security banquet. Footsteps echoed as a new figure approached, breaking the tense silence with deliberate confidence. Revealing their identity, the newcomer declared themselves as Demon Lord Bifrons, asserting control over the ship and marking a new beginning. The elegant hall buzzed with excitement as guests gathered around tables. Suddenly, the piano music stopped, causing confusion. The atmosphere turned tense. A cloaked figure danced across the stage, boldly demanding a song both bright and gloomy. Laughter followed, yet unease lingered. From the crowd, a girl observed the scene, eyes wide, standing beside her. A massive armored figure confirmed her suspicion they were facing the Demon Lord, suspended midair. The supposed Demon Lord appeared more like a marionette than a menace. Doubt crept into every gaze. He turned, feigning offense. Despite the theatrics, his words hinted at unexpected vulnerability beneath the title he bore. Nefi sat apart from the crowd, withdrawn, until Zagan called her out, urging her to engage with the guests instead of sulking. Reluctantly, she stepped forward, catching the eyes of everyone as the room fell silent under her strong presence. She was met with scorn, yet responded with pride, declaring the collar she wore a mark of her unbreakable bond with Zagan. Rather than retreat, Nefi stood firm, asserting her identity and dismissing their prejudice with unwavering confidence. Zagan, stunned, watched as she boldly defended herself, a sharp contrast from the timid girl he once knew. As Nefteros mocked the collar's meaning, Zagan calmly silenced her with a flick of magic, unimpressed by her insults. Her words grew more irritating, prompting him to scratch his ears in exaggerated boredom while others stifled laughter. Fuming with rage, she threatened violence, only to be casually warned that attacking would be a fatal mistake. Attempting to ease the tension, her master introduced her as his beloved servant, a delicate doll under his care. Despite her coldness, he admitted she understood him better than anyone, even if his odd affection made others laugh. One lord admired the bond between Zagan and Nefi, wondering how to forge such harmony with his own servant. Despite his smiles, the flamboyant Demon Lord revealed a deep loneliness, lamenting how no one shared his thoughts. Laughter followed his antics, but Zagan remained cold, unimpressed by the theatrics, and cutting off the moment. With magic crackling, he stepped forward, accusing the servant of past harm, promising swift retribution without hesitation. Mockery turned to aggression as the elder Demon Lord struck back, unleashing devastating power in response to the insult. Zagan faced a complex magic circle, knowing the more intricate the structure, the harder it was to consume with his devour magic. The enemy taunted him, confident that his power, amplified by a Demon Lord's seal, was beyond Zagan's reach. Suddenly, his expression twisted in confusion as Zagan activated a mysterious counterspell, rendering his magic unstable. Calmly, Zagan explained the interconnected nature of the Demon Lord's engraved seals, which resonated like tuning forks across space. With the same seal on his hand, he had deciphered the pattern, proving his control over the very power meant to defeat him. A challenge arose: sealing the power of the seal meant weakening himself. Zagan calmly accepted the risk without hesitation, turning his back on borrowed strength. He declared that trust was never placed in the seal to begin with. Prepared for any outcome, he explained how understanding the seal was necessary for eliminating the other Demon Lords. Mockery followed, questioning if Zagan was now reduced to an ordinary mage without his seal's power. Instead of scorn, admiration appeared. His foe praised him, acknowledging his terrifying talent and recognizing that he was indeed chosen well. Just as his opponent proposed to end the clash, Zagan cut him off coldly. He wasn't finished yet. Unleashing terrifying magical power, he declared that making Nefi cry was unforgivable. Even endless death couldn't compensate for that crime. With one move, he froze his opponent in place, invoking a powerful language spell meant for only the most serious matters. A sharp reminder followed. Zagan still sought answers about Nefi's connection to the Holy Swords, and this man had them. Feigning calm, the other lords smiled, silently acknowledging that Zagan's wrath ran far deeper than his fists could reach. At last, the elder Demon Lord agreed to listen, calling Zagan humorless, yet admitting the encounter had been somewhat entertaining. He revealed a shocking truth: Nefi was no ordinary elf, but a being known as a high elf, rare and powerful. Her divine lineage was traced to ancient gods, and her white hair, azure eyes, and overwhelming magic confirmed the theory. High elves possessed terrifying magic, so potent it could restore the dead, a power feared and misunderstood as a curse. Despite undeniable evidence, Nephi herself denied having such strength, unaware she had already revived lifeless bodies through her natural will. As the group recalled the miraculous healing in Keanoides, Nephi wondered if it had been Zagan's barrier that saved them. Zagan quickly dismissed the idea his barrier lacked the ability to restore the truly dead. Such power belonged to something else. The other demon lord reaffirmed his point. Nephi's abilities were the true cause. The implications began to settle in. With over 300 years of magical study, he had never encountered a high elf like her, and his frustration showed. Connecting the final thread confronted him directly, accusing him of being the one who had destroyed Nephi's home. The demon lord shrugged off blame, recounting how his long search for high elves ended in failure only for Zagan to find one. Nephi hesitated, the truth weighing heavily on her. The village's fate still lingered in her heart, unresolved. Zagan's blunt words cut through her guilt. The dead couldn't complain, he said, so there was no reason to carry their sorrow forever. That harsh comfort anchored her. His words had saved her spirit, giving her strength to move forward. She watched Zagan in awe, while the other lords sulked, frustrated his revelation hadn't shaken them as he'd hoped. Confused by the situation, Zagan claimed he hadn't seen or heard anything about Nephiro's supposed display of power. Silence swept the group as disbelief spread. No one expected such a blunt dismissal. Nephi admitted she didn't know how to explain it properly, especially after being interrupted earlier. Frustration flared. Despite her effort, the moment had passed unnoticed, yet Zagan praised her calmly for the unexpected victory, shrugging off the misunderstanding. The Elder Lord continued rambling about his research, proudly noting his discovery of magic rivaling Celestian spells. Thou Nephiros performed the Celestian spell. Zagan admitted he noticed nothing. His honesty caught everyone off guard. Linking the dots, it was suggested that the Demon Lord's seal could itself be a relic created through Celestian language. The discussion turned deeper, questioning the seal's true purpose and how they connected to higher beings labeled as demons. Somewhere beyond demons lay a greater king, one they chose to call the demon god, long thought vanquished by 12 holy swords. But doubts lingered. Could swords alone defeat such a being, or was the legend hiding a more complex truth? Startling theory emerged. A fragment of the demon god was sealed inside the demon lord's seal. A voice echoed from the shadows, recognizing Zagan as its king and awaiting command, revealing a deeper link: the lake before them. Once a battleground, marked the site where the demon god was defeated in ancient times.